Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna start a new series, What If Naruto Conquered the Soul Society, Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
It's clear that whoever said life is short never had all of their things in order. When you have accomplished everything you have ever set out to do, what do? Doing so, according to most people, would indicate that it was time to take a break and think back on your life. Thinking back on all of your past actions, celebrating your successes, and wallowing in your setbacks and failures. Basically just reviewing every aspect of your life because, if you've accomplished everything you set out to do that you felt was significant, that's all you can do at that point. That being said, what happens if you do that repeatedly until you have experienced every aspect of your life enough times to relive it 10 times over? You eventually grow bored. But wait, 10 times over? Shouldn't you be dead? Is undoubtedly on your mind, and I should be. This little outburst of mine is essentially about that. I'm still alive. I can't simply die of old age because of the things I did in a unique combination of characteristics that I was born with and developed over the course of my extremely busy and chaotic life. Not really of illness either, as my immune system is superior to any medical treatment you can imagine. I haven't had anyone worth talking about actively pursuing my life for a few hundred years now, Cammy, so it's not like someone is trying to kill me either. A few hundred years, indeed. The two toads who taught me the way of the sages were, apparently, telling the truth when they told me how old they were. They were well over 800 years old when I met them, and they are still alive today. Similar to me. In addition, one of my best and most recognizable qualities, my unwavering vitality and capacity to almost completely heal any serious harm done to me given enough time, persisted throughout my life. Therefore, even though I am without a doubt the oldest elderly person on the planet, I certainly don't look it. People find it extremely difficult to believe you when you recite sayings and significant life events, but you don't look a day older than 21. In fact, people now believe I'm younger than that. At a station, a blond young man slung his bag over his back, yawned loudly, and scratched his hair as he got off a bus. He woke up from a long-distance nap and rubbed his eyes as he looked around at the people who had gotten off with him, either rushing to their destinations or meeting loved ones. He didn't have any surviving loved ones or a specific place to be, so he just took his time before leaving on his own. Even though he had traveled the world numerous times, he had never made the time to visit this small place called Karakura Town. It wasn't a particularly imposing place, and it wasn't particularly high on his list of favorite places to visit. In fact, it was fairly normal in his opinion. Not too big, not too small, was the norm for the cities and towns that inhabited the world during this time. So I just do my business, which isn't business at all. In order to combat the still life, I wander around doing whatever I can. Nowhere have I ever been listed as a citizen. I am more or less immortal, so how could I be? The fact that the same guy they knew as a child was still alive and well, still looking younger than they were when they were pushing gray hairs, would eventually make people suspicious. I'm essentially a vagrant, earning money to travel from one location to another while engaging in whatever interests me at the moment. What else could I do since I had nothing really important to take care of? Along with bright blue eyes and odd whisker marks on his cheeks, the young man had wild, spiky blonde hair on his head and a pair of goggles on his forehead to keep his wild bangs out of his eyes. He was dressed in white sneakers, navy blue jeans, and a white t-shirt underneath an orange windbreaker jacket that had been unzipped and had a black stripe running down the sleeves. An old, tattered metal plate was sewn to a blue bandana around his neck. One could see the leaf symbol on the plate if they were paying close attention. Because you never know, I kept honing the skills and abilities that I had learned and developed throughout most of my troubled youth. I had seen people use ki, or what I called yin yang release, the physical embodiment of the two, but I had never seen anyone use both. The energy that was known in my time as chakra, the blending of spiritual and physical energies, started to fade from use. However, as I improved my abilities with both, I discovered the full extent of the spiritual half of the chakra, yin release. However, I had never heard of a common name for it because I had never met anyone who was knowledgeable enough to give it a proper name. It had so many names that I chose to call it what I knew. As time went on, I began to see things because of my deeper connection to Inten. Spooks, ghosts, poltergeists, phantoms, and spirits. Naturally, I am referring to ghosts, ladies and gentlemen, the departed personifications of the beloved. But I was actually quite excited, and why wouldn't I be, rather than afraid or anything foolish like that? Now I could see the dead. The first thing I did after realizing this was to flee as quickly as possible to the places where my people used to live in my original era and check for any relics from that time. Regretfully, I was unsuccessful. All of them were dead or no longer alive. However, it was for the best. It would have been incredibly self-centered of me to wish for my friends and loved ones to have remained in one location, alone, and with regrets for hundreds of years. I continued to travel until I finally arrived at the present. What makes this significant? Why is this the ability I'm talking about the most out of all the ones I've accumulated over my long life? Because eventually, whether you both realize it or not, your paths will cross, even if death never comes looking for you and you never go looking for it. Additionally, the meeting may not be what you had anticipated. While strolling through Karakura town, the man observed the charming sights. He had passed several groups of street punks who attempted to intimidate him, but he simply continued on his modest path while yelling in laughter. With a wiggle of his nose, he had defeated men who could have destroyed this city, and he didn't mean to be a jerk about it. He apologized, but he couldn't take seriously a few children brandishing weapons that were, at most, a pair of brass knuckles or a cheap switchblade. He took it as a compliment that they had left him alone after he had done so. Either they believed he was more trouble than he was ultimately worth, or he appeared so normal that it wasn't really reasonable for a group of criminals to do anything to pursue him. He discovered that either of his characteristics from his time as a shinobi became more noticeable the more time had gone by. Instead of having to demonstrate that he was the most powerful person on the planet, his ability to blend in and mix with the general population was starting to take center stage. He could either make tracks from the point of interest or make a few hand seals to transform into someone entirely different in a puff of smoke if his face was receiving too much attention that he didn't need or want. He was unsure of the number of bullshit aliases he had created over the years, but in more recent years he had become increasingly lazy about it, adopting the names of people he had met at specific times in his life. Alright, so we're back to using Uzumaki Naruto on the rotation for my name again? Works for me, he said to himself as he reached into his pocket and took out his wallet before removing the most recent forms of identification in case it came to that. Naruto sensed a certain something about this town that he was unable to identify. There was something familiar about the place, but he never experienced it enough to be able to quickly identify what it was that made him antsy. However, it was undoubtedly making him tense, and he wasn't prepared to attribute it to paranoia because, eventually, paranoia simply means that your intuition is becoming increasingly adept at spotting problems before you do. Roar Naruto noticed what he believed to be cracks in the sky. Yes, he could say with complete confidence and conciseness that those were cracks in the fucking sky after a moment of waiting and watching them grow larger. When he heard the roar and saw the cracks, he didn't hear or see anyone start to freak out and run, so he kept his composure and said, "So either this kind of thing happens all the time and it's not dangerous enough for people to really care." Numerous roars echoed through various locations, and cracks of various kinds emerged in the sky across the skyline of Karakura town. As Naruto made himself scarce in order to climb to the top of a respectable building for a better view, he began to perspire when he noticed that the sky was covered in dozens of cracks, and that enormous monsters were punching holes through them and descending into Karakura town from above. Or, the more likely of the two possible scenarios, no one else can see any of this happening. "I was really hoping that it wasn't a second one," he said, looking down and still seeing people moving around as if nothing were happening. Before briefly using his power, Naruto muttered to himself, "I'm too old for this shit." His eyes turned orange as he said, "Man, these things are just radiating hatred and violent desires." Using his ability to sense negative emotions, he picked up the question, "What are these things?" Roar. When Naruto looked up, he saw a crack above his head break, letting one of these creatures fall on his position. He had to leap out of the way to avoid being crushed or suffering an unknown fate. Naruto had a clear view of what he had witnessed start to infest the town as the dust from the monster's landing settled. The enormous green humanoid being was at least one person taller than Naruto, with spikes protruding from its arms, legs, back of its neck, and top of its head, and a huge hole in its chest where its heart should have been. Its face had a twisted expression and a white skull mask on it. Its red eyes revealed its intentions with Naruto as soon as it saw him. As if he were speaking to a rabid dog he was attempting to elude before bursting into a run, Naruto said, "Yeah, okay. Good. Whatever it is that you are." He did this while slowly creeping back on the balls of his toes. It roared once more and turned its whole body to face Naruto, saying, "Yeah, you're going to stay there and I'm going to get the hell out of here." The monster opened its mouth to reveal another one behind it, saying, "Ah, now that's a pretty smile." Hearing the roar of the monster that was essentially urging him to turn around, Naruto leapt from that rooftop to another a considerable distance away in a single bound. Naruto grinned as he glanced over his shoulder and said, "Yeah, you've got to get up pretty early in the late afternoon to put down Uzumaki Naruto. Are you unaware of who I am?" He stopped running and turned to face the monster that hadn't begun pursuing him yet in order to taunt it in grandiose fashion. "I am the..." Roar. Slowly turning around, Naruto saw 3 more monsters behind him, each with a different appearance, all big and hulking. All wearing skull masks and having evil faces. What the hell? Is it just me, as usual, or does anyone else have to put up with this kind of nonsense? Why do I always have to put up with this kind of crap? Wearing a black hakama, a black kasode, white socks, and traditional straw sandals, the tall, lean-built teen with the spiky orange hair yelled to no one in particular. His eyes were brown and angry, which was likely related to the horde of monsters he was currently slicing through with his oversized sword. As he swiftly dispatched the now identified hollows, he thought to himself, Ishida Uryu is solely to blame for this. I've been killing hollows all day long, and they just keep coming. When this is all over, I'm going to track down Ishida and kick his ass until he fixes this. The orange-haired boy's mind was filled with a taunting image of a black-haired teenager wearing a school uniform, glasses, and an ebullient expression. "I'm coming for you, Ishida," the boy growled to himself as he continued to run down the street. "You bastard, don't undervalue my instincts." Another hollow's mask was pierced by an arrow of pure energy, which caused it to shatter and the hollow's body to vanish into thin air. According to the black-haired teenager who had been cursed out by the other, it's getting harder to kill them with one strike. He stood with a bow of energy in one hand and his other drawn back as though he had just finished firing it, blood dripping off the tips of his fingers. "The number of hollows is far too high for the amount of bait I use. I can't seem to keep up with just my strength and ability, at this rate I'll..." He violently smashed any negative thoughts he might have been spreading in his mind, saying, No whining. I can do it. I won't lose to Kurosaki Ichigo. I haven't made a mistake. I will avenge my sensei." He then promptly resumed his search for hollows. Byakurai Way of Destruction Number 4. Pale Lightning, is Hado Number 4. A tiny girl in a school uniform, with black hair and violet eyes, threw a tiny lightning bolt from her index and middle fingers at a hollow, which bounced harmlessly off it. The hollow then swung at her, causing her to leap back and escape. "Shit, my keto didn't work at all, and this hollow is just a small fry. I've been in this gigai for 2 months and my strength hasn't recovered at all," she said, glaring at the hollow. The hollow raised its arm to slam the girl to the ground, but an orange blur kicked it in the side of the head. "Ichigo?" "Rukia Nisan." Ichigo yelled as he attempted to latch onto the girl in a hug. At second glance, Ichigo was wearing his own school uniform, not the combat gear from his battles. "I've missed you, Kon," Rukia said, preventing him from giving her a hug. "Oh no, Kon, isn't that you? Wait, if you're here in Ichigo's body then that means he transformed into a Shinigami, huh?" she said, pressing her foot against his face to stop him from moving any further. Ichigo's spirit, Kon, replied, "Yeah. I think I was supposed to find you and ask about something, but I can't really remember what it was." After receiving a tick mark on her head, Rukia began using her foot to pound Kon's head more forcefully. "Really? I suppose I must aid in your memory, don't I? Oh, that's good to hear. At least it's safe here." Uryu was standing there when Rukia and Kon turned to face the voice. "What the hell are you talking about?" they asked. "This whole thing is your fault," Kon yelled angrily at Uryu. "All of this began when you tried to kill everyone in town by using that bait to call all of those hollows here." With a suspicious expression on her face, Rukia said, "I see, so this is your handiwork after all." Uryu grinned and said, "I think I should say that it's a pleasure to meet you." He then said, drawing Kon's attention, "You there, the spirit in Kurosaki's body. This is the first time I've spoken to you privately like this, Kuchiki Rukia. You're right that I initiated the altercation, but I refuse to allow anyone in this town to perish," he declared. "Even if Kurosaki Ichigo dies, I will use my life to protect the people in this town," shocking Rukia and Kon with his conviction. "This fight is pointless if I am unable to accomplish that. What do you want to demonstrate?" Ignoring the hollow that Kon had kicked getting back up to attack her and him once more, Rukia asked him. "Gosh." As soon as the hollow's head was abruptly severed, Uryu swiftly shaped his bow to destroy it. "You bitch of a son, I've finally located you, Kurosaki," Uryu said, turning his head and properly tilting his glasses back onto his face. Standing atop a set of park stairs, Ichigo said, "Hey there, Ishida." With Naruto, After finally growing tired of running, Naruto turned to fight the hollows who had previously pursued him, but that only served to attract more, so he decided to run again and ducked another one of them. This is so stupid. Why in the world would these things want to bother me? I arrived just now. To have those sick demons on me, who could I have possibly irritated? Naruto soon discovered that the weapons he carried on him did very little to these things. If he didn't generate yin chakra to use them, they would simply fly through them like ghosts, and his regular ninjutsu would hardly make any impression at all. The only things that were certain to work out were his own feet and fists. So he was essentially fighting freaky monster ghosts. Well, he'd bite. Why were they pursuing him? They didn't seem particularly upset that he had taken the others out. They just seemed to want a piece of him without any justification. Allowing his thoughts to divert him, Naruto screamed in a very unmanly manner before leaping over a horizontal swipe of one of the hollow's tails and landing on its head with a forceful stomp that ultimately broke and cracked the mask. As the dust settled, Naruto stood motionless, panting from his spontaneous battle. Then he turned to the sky and shouted, "What? Do you only have a few ugly-ass horror movie rejects for me? Did you think I would be affected in any way by that? In case you haven't understood after all these years, I'm Uzumaki fucking Naruto. I could have slept through that. What else do you have for me?" he asked, beginning to move around the rooftop of the rather tall building where he had escaped to fight. "I genuinely want to know, so please. I was 16 years old when I faced more terrifying things." Naturally, following his tirade of rage and adrenaline, he saw that all of the sky's fissures were congregating in one area of the park, where every remaining hollow in Karakura town started to flock toward the crack. One of the swarming hollows broke off and flew in Naruto's direction, attempting to devour him. With a loud suction noise from the attack, Naruto gritted his teeth and pulled his right arm back, creating a pure black, nearly translucent orb of spiraling energy in his hand. Inten. Rasengan Yin Release. Rasengan. The strongest men of my time trying to take over the world couldn't kill me, nature couldn't kill me, and time couldn't kill me. I'm going to solve this too, Naruto said, dropping his guard once more and destroying the hollow by slamming the ball into its mask and cutting right through the middle of its body. To permanently put me down, you'll need to send the Shinigami himself. A pair of enormous bony fingers peeled back the sky, revealing a massive skull mask with a pointy nose larger than any hollow Naruto had yet encountered. The sound of the sky cracking became louder than before. "Ra!" Naruto shouted angrily, stomping his foot and cursing to himself. Naruto took a deep breath and calmed himself down as he massaged his temple because of the headache this entire day was giving him. "Okay, I'll go deal with that too." "Why not?" Naruto made a ram hand seal with both hands, saying, "Shunshin no Jutsu body flicker jutsu. I haven't had a place to stay while I'm here or even a bite to eat in like 16 hours, but who cares because the sky decided to rain freaky ghosts onto me for the hell of it." Before he vanished from the roof, his body was encircled by a whirl of leaves and wind. A black cat eventually emerged from behind an air conditioner, surveyed the area where Naruto had been standing, and then said in a manly tone, "Well, it appears that Kazuki forgot someone when he was gathering up the other children. And in terms of fighting, at least, this one appears to be skilled. He didn't black out, and he's been engaging in combat with as many hollows as the Quincy and the substitute Shinigami." The cat blinked and chuckled sheepishly, saying, "Oh, I see. I was meant to assist Kazuki in gathering up the spiritually conscious, wasn't I? The cat ran and jumped off the side of the building, so I had better go catch him before I lose him for the time being." As the enormous hollow dragged itself through the opening in the sky, Rukia stood looking up at the sky in horror. Khan approached her from behind and gazed at the same scene, asking, What is that huge hollow Rukia Nisan?" Rukia responded in a whisper, as though she was still in shock that she was actually witnessing it. "Manos, a gigantic hollow born from hundreds of hollows piling and mixing together." Khan just listened to her as she went on to say, "It is unthinkable that that thing would come out like this. I've only ever seen something like this as an illustration in a textbook, the Great Hollow, Manos Grande. The elite forces have authority over those. It would be impossible for a single Shinigami to resist it. The few unfortunate hollows that came near the Manos Grande's mouth when it chose to close it ended up being eaten. The Manos Grande opened its mouth as several hollows gathered around it and blasted a huge red burst of energy that destroyed every hollow in the fire's path. It is consuming other hollows." Uryu let out a cry of shock, unaware that hollows, not just humans, ate one another in such a manner. "There's no way we can figure out how to fight that kind of monster," Ichigo said, laughing. "With this guy." He began wildly swinging his enormous sword, we'll cut, and cut, and cut, and cut until we finally defeat him. There isn't another option." Then Ichigo dashed off in the direction of the enormous hollow, saying, "Come on, Ishida. Wait, Kurosaki." Uryu exclaimed, following in his wake so he wouldn't be excluded from the fight. Ichigo, quit it. You can't fight that thing, it'll annihilate you." Rukia yelled as he ran past her toward the Mainos, swinging his sword like a berserker. However, before she could pursue him, a blond man wearing a bucket hat, a long cloak draped over his body, a scraggly beard, and wooden sandals stood in front of her, preventing her from doing so. "Urahara, what's the meaning of this?" she asked him angrily. "Are you trying to get Ichigo killed?" "Of course not," was the man's casual response. "Then move aside. This isn't an opponent Ichigo can win against." Rukia pushed him aside, but she was stopped when Urahara's hand held her back. "Yeah, I can't really do that, Kuchiki-san," he said coolly and calmly. "Please just watch quietly." Rukia's body fell to the ground as though she were completely immobile. "This battle is crucial. As crucial to you as it will be for him." Ichigo approached the Mainos Grande and sliced into the side of its leg while yelling a battle cry. But the hollow kicked him off as if he were a bother after his enormous blade only made a tiny gash. "I told you that wouldn't work, Kurosaki," he said, landing next to Uryu on his back. He shot an arrow at the mask, but it just bounced off. "Shit. Just as I thought. I can't do any kind of damage at this rate." He turned to face the still downed Ichigo and asked, "Are you alright?" Even though he had a gash bleeding on his forehead, Ichigo immediately got back up and smiled, saying, "Huh? Yeah, I'm not too bad off." Not sure if he truly wanted to know Ichigo's innermost thoughts, Uryu asked him, "What were you thinking? How on earth were you going to take him down with that?" Ichigo, ready to explain, said thoughtfully, "Well, since he's so big, I thought I could cut his feet and work my way all the way up to the head where I could start wailing on the mask." Uryu grabbed Ichigo's sword and said, "Geez, were you dropped on your head at some point or something? Now get up. We need to rethink our battle strategy." But when he did, his bow was overloaded with power. "What?" Uryu asked, staring at Ichigo, who was complaining that they didn't even have a plan in the first place. "No way, this is Kurosaki's Riryoku spiritual power, if he unconsciously releases this much power." "Kurosaki. What do you want? Whoa, what the hell is that? Why is your bow so huge now?" Uryu asked, diverting Ichigo's attention from his own mutterings. "That's not important," Uryu replied, unknowingly lying to both himself and Ichigo because at the moment, that was precisely what mattered. "This may seem like a strange idea, but I know how we can beat him. With Naruto, all right, only my yin chakra will work on this stupid thing, and I don't think that the Inten Rasengan yin release Rasengan will be enough to put this giant SOB down on the first try," Naruto said, sitting on a lower building around the park, quite a distance from the Mainos, as he looked at it and tried to think of some kind of plan before running in and getting his ass kicked. "Sigh, and I only believe that it helped me see ghosts. I never imagined having to battle them." Naruto angrily punched himself in the head and said, "I suppose I should work on that when I get a chance if I get out of this. How did the Rikudo Sennin learn how to use this crap? He had no one to teach him, and I don't either. I can only use it with the Rasengan because of this. Damn it." "Fine," Naruto growled to himself, closing his eyes and assuming a meditative sitting position. "If that's how it's going to be, then I'm totally game for it," he said. "I'm fully aware of what to do." Because he was in the middle of a city that was much more modern than those that existed in his time, there wasn't much to work with, but it would have to do for the time being. Beggars couldn't be choosers in this situation. He cracked an eye when he felt a weight on his shoulder and noticed that a black cat had perched itself there, looking at him curiously. "Well, hey there, little buddy." He grinned and said, "Are you going to help me out with this?" "Well, that seems like a yes to me," he said, laughing as the cat meowed as though it understood him and rubbed against the side of his head. "Little kitty cat, just spend some time with me while I prepare myself for this." Naruto closed his eyes and started to meditate. With Uryu and Ichigo, all right, the preparations are finished. We can now battle him, Uryu spoke with confidence and determination. How did Uryu manage to create such a huge bow that was rippling with spiritual power instead of using a bow of normal size? "Well, you're a complete moron, aren't you?" Ichigo inquired. "Stop whining." He tied Ichigo's sword to the top of his head, causing Ichigo to grasp it and subtly produce power for himself to use. Uryu angrily yelled at him, "I can shoot an unbelievable size arrow if I maintain contact with your sword and use your Riryoku. Go ahead and use your power now. Manage it and make the most of it." Ichigo gave him a doubtful look and said, but I never control my Riryoku. What? Don't be silly, Uryu told him in utter shock, because how else could you have fought hollows for so long? No clue actually. Ichigo stated bluntly, and how should I know? Managing this stuff is akin to letting it run amok and halting it, isn't it? If I could manipulate it like a water hose or something, it would be simple. Isn't it because I'm constantly using my power to the fullest if people keep telling me that it's great? That makes sense. But to have his Riryoku maxed out all the time and not be tired, what a monster, Uryu thought to himself. With a sudden roar, the hollow opened its mouth and aimed at Uryu and Ichigo with another of its previously used red beams. Sero, Rukia uttered futilely from the sidelines, the Sero will be used. Run, Ichigo. You won't have a chance if that thing hits you, you'll die. Come on Kurosaki, this is the only way, Uryu said, raising his bow to aim. Once more, attach your sword to my body. When he saw Ichigo running toward the Manos Grande to attack it again, he interrupted himself, asking, where do you think you're going? What the hell is this strong Ryatsu spiritual pressure? Kurosaki's getting stronger. Uryu watched in wonder as Ichigo's power rose, but he gritted his teeth and held out against the energy blast. When he realized what was happening, he said, no, he was never maxing out his power. If he had been, then eventually it would have dried out. If he can't control his power, it means he wasn't using his power to fight. His Riryoku is always in its lowest state. As Ichigo retaliated and slashed back, seriously injuring the Manos Grande, Uryu mused to himself, if any external force makes him exert any more energy. He caused harm to the hollow. Rukia couldn't believe what she had just seen. A substitute was able to wound a Manos Grande greatly after only 2 months of being on the job and no formal training. It's retreating. The Manos was trying to climb back inside after tearing a hole out of the air. Return here. I haven't finished with you yet, Ichigo yelled at the Manos. I still need to kick your ass. You big, ugly bastard, you don't, a voice unfamiliar to everyone in attendance called out aggressively. A yellow and orange blur ran past Ichigo and Uryu towards the trees where it jumped up the sides rapidly before reaching the top of one and, using it like a slingshot, flung itself at the massive hollow. At a closer look, it was a blond boy with an orange jacket on flying at the Manos. He formed a cross sign with his fingers in the air, forming a copy of himself, and held out his hand where the copy started generating power. Eat this, Inton. Super Great Ball Spiraling Sphere Yin Release. Cho Odama Rasengan. Immediately, a huge black spiraling orb twice as big as his whole body formed and smashed into the Manos Grande's face, bringing it down with a thunderous roar as it attempted to enter its portal and depart Karakura town. The strange blonde was dusting himself off with a big smile on his face as Ichigo and Uryu ran over to where an amazing amount of dust had been kicked up from the fall of the massive Manos. His eyes were strangely colored and detailed before they faded, leaving normal bright blue eyes. Man, that felt good, Ichigo and Uryu said. We sure kicked that thing's ass, huh? He exclaimed, then held out his arm to give Uryu and Ichigo a thumbs up. Uryu and Ichigo exchanged glances before Ichigo turned back to him and blinked, saying, yeah, sure. Ichigo then chose to inquire, wait, you can see me? What are you meant to be? Naruto blinked and substituted an outstretched hand for the thumbs up, saying, yeah, I see you, samurai boy. Naruto is my name, what about yours? Ichigo. How do you see me? Ichigo asked himself, not really expecting an answer. I'm supposed to be just a spirit right now. When Uryu didn't shake his hand, Naruto held it out for him and eventually withdrew it. Well, I saw those giant ghost things that were trying to kill me, so why wouldn't I be able to see you? Naruto said. Hollows. What you saw and fought were hollows, Uryu stated quite casually. You learn something new every day, I suppose. So what are you two supposed to be anyway? Huh. Naruto said, storing this information. Is this a group of cosplayers? Because if it is, I have no idea what the two of you are supposed to be. The orange-haired teenager got in Naruto's face after Uryu and Ichigo collapsed on the ground. I'm a substitute Shinigami. What should you become? How did you kill that hollow in that manner? Naruto grinned cheekily and said, because I'm awesome. And you're a substitute Shinigami? Naruto narrowed his eyes and gave Ichigo a serious look. All right, I'll comply. Then, Naruto sidestepped Ichigo's punch, saying, a school kid with a temper problem. Where's the real Shinigami then, because you look like some school kid. And I'm a bit of a nomad, if you must know, and we're all telling each other what we do for a living here. A kind of traveling sage. Uryu gave Naruto a close examination and said, a sage? You don't resemble any sage that I've ever seen or heard of. So, How many have you actually seen? Let's see, you probably expected an old man peddling charms or something. Naruto shot back, his face arid. Both Uryu and Ichigo nodded at him. That's a stereotype, and stereotyping is wrong, he said. I just go about doing good things, seeing the world, earning money, and other things. You just said you don't peddle charms, Ichigo said, gesturing to him. Then Naruto said, I don't. So, how do you generate income? Ichigo wondered, you don't seem capable of doing anything. What is this? Naruto held an orange book out in front of him, which Uryu had taken to look through. How I make my money. Naruto proudly replied, those were written by my sensei. After republishing them, I wrote follow-ups. The book then linked off of Naruto's face, so you can keep that one if you'd like. Uryu was turned away to conceal his undignified blush, while Ichigo's arm remained outstretched from the throw. You wrote that crap? While he was trying to teach me all of that birds and the bees nonsense, my dad tried to get me to read that smut, he roared angrily. It would tell me all I needed to know, he said. And did you? Rubbing his face where the book had struck him, Naruto questioned him. I never needed to be aware that some of those things were possible, Ichigo remarked, experiencing flashbacks to the material he had read. Well, I am a sage, Naruto said with a wise nod. That just so happened to be one of the many topics I know a great deal about. However, I would prefer not to deal with those hollow things once more. After years of seeing ghosts, I've never had to battle them before. Naruto's stomach rumbled suddenly. I haven't eaten in a whole day. I suppose we'll cross paths with Shinigami, Ichigo and an unidentified man wearing spectacles. Ichigo attempted to intervene, saying, hey, hold on, if you're not a Quincy or a Shinigami, then what? Naruto suddenly vanished in a whirlwind of leaves. Are you still alive? He looked where Naruto had been standing before he suddenly lost his balance and fell to the ground. What's happening? Ichigo inquired as his sword began to take on new forms. The Zanpakuto is changing shape. No, damn it, I can feel the power from here rushing into me without even touching it, and it's stronger than before, it's going to explode. Uryu said, gazing at the sword. I have to take Ichigo's power and stabilize it before giving it back to him until he can calm himself, Uryu said, launching arrows into the air. Ichigo watched Uryu gather his strength and launch shot after shot until his arm supporting the bow began to fail from the strain of constant use. Hey, what are you doing? I know what you want to do, Ichigo said, but don't go overboard or you'll lose your arm. Kurosaki, stop talking. As he continued to shoot arrow after arrow, Uryu shouted, I've already told you that I despise the Shinigami. You yourself stated that we cannot fight if we are not alive. In order for me to defeat you, you'd better live. After witnessing what had happened today, Rukia fell to her knees. Amanos appeared and was defeated. Ichigo truly performed admirably. Yes, but that other guy that showed up is a strange one, Urahara said, nodding in agreement. When a black cat approached and looked directly at him, he said to Rukia, I'm not sure what to think of him. He smiled and waved a fan in front of his face, saying, oh well, I guess it really doesn't matter right now. I have to fix that enormous crack in the sky right now. Look at that thing. It's enormous. I own a candy store, and I'm supposed to clean up this mess? Rukia left Urahara to go look for Ichigo, sweating profusely. Man, I didn't expect to get into a fight today. Maybe I should take that as a sign and move along faster than usual, Naruto said, breathing a sigh of relief as he lay down on his hotel bed following a shower. Unfortunately, I kind of enjoy this place. I would say this place is pretty cool if it weren't for the hollow monsters that seem to be everywhere in the fake Shinigami. Meow, the same black cat from before, was standing on the sill, staring at Naruto as he turned his head toward an open window. Hey there, Naruto said. He lay on his back and gazed up at the ceiling, saying, I have nothing important going on and I like animals. I don't know how you found me or why you would look for me, but feel free to hang out for as long as you want. As his eyes started to close, he said to the cat and himself, very, very long day. The cat leapt down from the sill and went to Naruto's bed, where it hopped up and lay down directly beside him. I understand why you might believe that, nevertheless, you performed admirably. All right, I didn't feel anyone else enter this room and no one has properly snuck up on me in forever, Naruto said, opening his eyes slowly at the sound of the deep voice inside the room and then focusing on the cat next to him that had one eye open. Additionally, I don't think you mean any harm, so I'm going to assume that you said that. His theory was confirmed when the cat's eye lifted as though it were doubting his sanity and said, in the deep voice he had heard, you don't seem surprised that a cat spoke to you. You are not the first talking animal I've seen before, and the fact that you didn't try to eat me alive or cut me up before you said anything makes you cool with me, Naruto said, scratching his nose. As I mentioned, I enjoy animals. So, do you have a name for your talking cat, and what can I do for you today? He concluded, scratching the cat behind its ears. Uzumaki Naruto, your resident traveling sage, is available to assist you if you believe I can. I was unaware that one of the abilities of a human sage was the ability to see and slay hollows, the cat said, leaping up onto his chest. Naruto grinned and remarked, I'm special. The cat remarked, well then. Urahara was only paying attention to the people who were near that Kurosaki child. He nearly missed a diamond in the rough in you, and I understand why. By the way, my name is Yoruichi. Well then Yoruichi, you said something about me being a diamond in the rough, Naruto said, memorizing the name. How couldn't he? It wasn't like he met talking cats everywhere he went, especially these days. For what purpose? You didn't appear to know what you were doing or what you were fighting, but you weren't taken by surprise or caught off guard when it came to the actual fighting, Yoruichi said. Tell me, are you aware of your actions? Do you? But I'll tell you what I did, Naruto replied, letting Yoruichi leap off of him to enable him to sit up. I made use of something that people no longer recognize as chakra. Well, not chakra per se, but a component of it. The yin chakra, the spiritual half. Chakra. The cat sounded as though it wanted to argue with Yoruichi, but after hearing that he actually sounded as though he understood what he was talking about, the cat decided to keep quiet and let him speak. Chakra is the fusion of the body's spiritual and physical energies, Naruto said, nodding. The yin and yang chakras would represent the spiritual and physical aspects, respectively. I might start seeing ghosts because I'm so in tune with my yin chakra. I am a very good fighter, but until today, I have never been attacked by a hollow. However, not so much with the yin chakra alone. Yoruichi thought incredulously, he's never been attacked by a hollow before. Then how does he know how to fight them? Well, I must tell you that what you call yin chakra has a name. It's known as Riryoku. Naruto grinned as he processed the information, saying, Riryoku, you got it. For ages, I have been waiting for someone else to name yin chakra. Yang chakra has already been renamed. The most popular term for that is ki. However, I apologize, you were speaking, please continue. Thank you. Yoruichi said, but I must say, he continued. You don't really know how to use your Riryoku, despite your claim to be in tune with it. Yoruichi saw him giving him a deer in the headlights look and gave him a deadpan look in return. The giant hollow from the park. Yoruichi nodded, however, that one attack you used on the Mainos was incredible for one such as you. Yoruichi's face registered the reference and he gave a thumbs up, releasing a drop of perspiration. Anyway, the amount of energy output from that one attack was staggering. You appeared to have amazing control over your Riryoku, using it at a rate equivalent to that of a lieutenant. A lieutenant? Puzzled, Naruto uttered, lieutenant of what? Shocked by the slip, Yoruichi said, oh, a lieutenant-level Shinigami. That's a really powerful level. Naruto was now staring at the cat with narrowed eyes, asking, what's up with that face? It was a compliment. This isn't the first time I've heard this Shinigami stuff, you know, Naruto said, staring at the cat and then scratching his cheek. You are discussing Shinigami levels after a kid with orange hair and a large sword claimed to be a substitute Shinigami earlier today. He looked around his room, lifting pillows and checking his lampshade, and said, am I being punked? All of this suggests that there are multiple Shinigami, and I only know of one. Does this nation even have that? After a few minutes of watching the blonde scurry around searching for hidden cameras, Yoruichi finally addressed him seriously, asking, so how much do you actually want to know? Yoruichi's words, it sounds like I'm giving you a choice, but you can't just select and choose in this instance, halted Naruto as he opened the hotel-provided drawer to examine the cat. You've already gotten involved. This is where you've been since you killed your first hollow. You're already involved, even if you don't want to hear anything else I have to say or if you don't want to know anymore. The lecture continued despite the cat's surprise at Naruto's return of Yoruichi's hardened gaze. You Uzumaki Naruto are spiritually aware, and there's nothing you can do about that right now. All that's left is to embrace it or deny it. You can choose to ignore it, and everything you would have learned about will still occur around you, but you won't be ready for any of it, or you can listen to what I have to say and accept everything that goes along with it. Will you pay attention, or will you abandon this poor, defenseless cat into the bitterly cold night? As Yoruichi made it apparent that the serious moment was over, a drop of perspiration appeared on Naruto's head. All right, let's balance the advantages and disadvantages here, Naruto said, standing and stroking his chin thoughtfully before pacing back and forth. The drawbacks would be that I would be involved in something that I have no business learning anything about, that I would likely have to fight a lot more hollow things, that I would likely have to stay here until you told me I could leave once I got involved, that I would likely make really strong enemies, something I've done a very good job of avoiding for a long time, mind you, and that I would have to learn. He gulped in terror. The advantages? With a laugh, Yoruichi asked him. Naruto looked at the cat and began to write down things using his fingers, positives. I was very bored until today. I'm a nosy bastard, so I actually do want to know this stuff. I'll probably have to fight more of those hollow things anyway, no matter how I feel about it, so knowing more about what they are exactly would be great. I'll have to stay around here, but on the other hand I've been very lonely for a long time and you seem like entertaining company, so I don't think I'll mind setting up shop for the time being. He noticed that Yoruichi was giving him a toothy reply. I haven't had a good fight in who knows how long, and the enemies I seem to attract, well, existence by and large would be better without them. So, what are your thoughts? Yoruichi asked him, making a poor attempt to conceal her excitement. What do I think? Naruto asked, giving Yoruichi a serious expression that made the cat a little uneasy. You want to know what I think when a cat approaches me and tries to scare or coerce me into doing something strange like this? I believe, he said menacingly, then smiled again. I'm in. He held out his hand, and Yoruichi put a paw inside it so they could shake hands. When the hand-paw shake was finished, Yoruichi leapt from the bed and said, all right, later, if you're as in as you say, I'll find you to start. Now that that is resolved, I would like to clean myself because, as you previously stated, it has been a long day. Though Yoruichi could talk like a human and he knew other creatures that bathed like humans, so why not? He said uncertainly as he made his way to his travel bag and rummaged through his belongings. Go ahead. Naruto blinked in confusion. Didn't cats usually just lick themselves and be done with it? Are you in need of anything? Or do you require my assistance? In an attempt to be helpful, he asked. No, that's not really necessary. At the sound of a female voice filling his room, Naruto's eyes widened, but he never felt Yoruichi leave or anyone else enter the room. What the hell? He turned around and saw a dark-skinned woman with long purple hair enter his bathroom, and she was also naked. Oh, in case you didn't know, I'm a woman, Yoruichi said, glancing over her shoulder from the door at Naruto, who had his jaw hanging quite slack at what he was seeing. Good to know, isn't it? As she shut the door behind her and turned on the shower, she said, yes, Urahara might have found all of Ichigo's friends, but I've got myself an ace in the hole. She laughed when she saw Naruto nod foolishly, unable to take his eyes off her. Thanks for the use of the shower, Naruto-kun, she said in a playful way. He could do that stuff himself, so it wasn't the transformation that shocked him, but rather the fact that she changed in front of him while naked. Needless to say, it had been a while since Naruto had been in a certain department. Naruto stood staring at his bathroom door as the sound of water flowing freely let him know this was definitely not a dream. This is going to sell me 1,000,000 freaking copies, I swear to Kami, he said quietly as he reached into his bag and took out a notepad, quickly writing down what he had seen inside. For such and such, a hot Catwoman broke into the main character's hotel room. Man, I understand why Ero Sennin did this. A tiny trickle of blood escaped from his nose. This stuff writes itself. As he wandered around Karakura town, Naruto wondered when Yoruichi would come look for him. Only a few days had passed since Naruto's unexpected arrival in town, where he was thrust headfirst into the massive battle royale with the Hollows. Yoruichi had entered his hotel room and given him a memory that he was positive he wouldn't lose for a long time, and he hadn't seen her since. She promised to explain everything to him, but as of right now, all he knows is what he figured out on his own. That Hollows were merely vicious ghosts that devoured people's souls and desired his death in particular because they seemed to find those who could see spirits to be somewhat of a delicacy. How enjoyable. Thus, he was attempting to investigate what he believed would be his temporary new stomping ground. It was a pleasant day. He was hungry from the hotel breakfast, and he was searching for something to do until he could locate Yoruichi once more. It was quite difficult to find a woman with her level of beauty. Perhaps what made it so difficult was the part about her maintaining her transformation into a black cat. His clones searched the entire town for her, but they were unsuccessful. From behind him, Naruto heard someone yell, "Hey kid. Yeah, you, blondie. You're the only blonde guy out here, so you know I'm talking to you." Naruto turned to check who was staring at him from the street. It was his sincere hope that one of those gangs he had been laughing at in his mind and ignoring didn't want to cause a stir. Naruto turned around and confronted a police officer, asking, "You called for me? Can I help you?" Naruto was greatly confused by the cop's stern gaze. Since arriving in Karakura town, Naruto had not done anything, well, nothing unlawful, at least not anything that anyone could substantiate. Since most people couldn't even see it, he was certain he was covered on that front. He wasn't sure if it was illegal to engage in a pitched battle with a huge monster in the middle of town, but he was certain it wasn't. He hadn't even done a jaywalk, and he was constantly tempted to cross the street rather than wait for the light to change. He believed that he was a law-abiding citizen. Naruto was asked by the policeman, "What are you doing?" "I don't know." "What am I doing, officer?" Naruto shrugged in defeat after glancing around as though he might see the answer in the air. As he pulled out his wallet and handed over an ID, Naruto's eyes widened in understanding. "You're supposed to be in there. If you're going to skip school, don't walk in front of the school you're supposed to be attending." The man narrowed his eyes at Naruto and pointed to the side, across the street at a high school. "All right, kid, get in there." Naruto was trying to get out of this situation, and it would have worked if he had been paying more attention and being more cautious when creating his most recent ID for the country he was in. Dropping his jaw, Naruto asked, "What? Why?" Naruto was pushed across the street by the officer, who said, "You can't just ditch when you feel like it. Now get in there already." Naruto couldn't even defend himself against what was happening because he was too stunned. He wanted to slap himself after looking at his ID. In addition to registering himself as a high school student, he set his birth date to be under the age of 18. He was not homeschooled, as was customary during his extended visits to Japan. As he entered the building, Naruto was kicking his own ass in his head, thinking, "Damn, I ought to have simply begun speaking English. He would have assumed I was a tourist, but people always assume I'm American." For Naruto, school really served no purpose. Language classes. Naruto was able to move freely because he knew every language that was helpful to him. Past events. What use would that class serve him, since he had been around for everything significant enough to truly recall? Calculation. Who needed math, then? Who cared about anything else as long as he could perform basic tasks? He still had all those zeros on his check from selling his books over and over again. Once more, how many accounts did he have? Man, he needed to check all of those things. With the money he had in there, he knew he would have gotten some kick-ass interest, and there was never. Once Naruto was pushed into the bathroom, the officer threw a uniform at him and said, "Okay kid, get dressed in this uniform. You've missed enough class." Naruto yelled angrily, "I don't want to be here. Don't you have crimes to stop or something?" "Sorry kid, I'm a truant officer, it's my job. Now what's your schedule?" the officer said, shaking his head. "I don't have one, damn it," exclaimed Naruto as he changed into his uniform for an inexplicable reason. Possibly because he couldn't actually use a clone to replace himself and get away without revealing his secret. Let's just say that he hadn't run that fast in a while when people discovered he could use chakra. After Naruto had finished changing and packed his clothes in his bag, he grabbed Naruto's arm and cried, "You never even showed up to school to get your schedule. How irresponsible. Come on, I know where you should go with kids in your grade. You look about 16. Naruto was now clearly crying. He meant something enjoyable when he asked for something to do. He wasn't even going to start college, saying, "I'm not 16, you asshole, I'm..." And that school was not fun at all. In fact, the Shinobi Academy in Konoha was more fun than the schools that sprung up throughout history after his era ended. Students also had to stay in the system longer. Hold on. What is my age? He thought to himself. Damn. Okay, let's see. 16 multiplied by... Before a door slid open and he was flung inside. The officer wiped his hands and said, "I apologize for disturbing your class, Ochi-sensei, but I caught this kid skipping and he doesn't even know what class he's in. I thought I could drop him here until I spoke with the principal about him." Naruto then landed on his face in front of a desk at the head of the class. "That's okay, Officer Honda. I can keep him here for the time being." A young woman turned away from the chalkboard and turned to face Naruto, who was glaring at the officer and muttering what she assumed were curses under his breath. "Who knows, he might even be in my class to begin with," she said, smiling at Naruto. "Why don't you introduce yourself to the class?" Naruto rolled his eyes and got up off the ground. To preserve what little dignity he still had, Naruto coughed into his hand after finishing to dust himself off. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you." "Is that it? Come on man, you've got to tell us more than that, like how old are you? Where are you from, or what's with those marks on your cheeks? Are they tattoos?" said a rather boisterous boy with shoulder-length brown hair as he turned to face Naruto. Naruto decided to make fun of the boy who was identified as Keigo after scowling at him and saying, fine. I'm as old as all of you think I am. The marks on my cheeks aren't tattoos, they're birthmarks, and who the hell tattoos whiskers on their cheeks, by the way? And my hometown? I'm from a little town called None of Your Goddamn Business. A ruler slapped the side of his head suddenly, and he said, "Ow." With a tick mark on the side of her head at his use of foul language, Ochi-sensei said to him, "Okay, Uzumaki-san, take a seat. That seat in the corner is vacant." After giving the teacher the "okay" sign, Naruto hurried to his seat so she could resume her lesson. Naturally, he ignored everything she said because, once this was over, he would never again be found within a mile of this school. Instead, he looked around the classroom and was shocked to see two people he knew well. Ichigo and the kid with the glasses, whose name he never knew, were two of the three individuals he had actually met in Karakura town. Naturally, Ichigo was aware of his presence and had been observing him along with a smaller, black-haired girl who was seated next to him. Uryu, on the other hand, was attempting to ignore him but was failing miserably. Before they turned around and left him on his own, Naruto gave Ichigo a cheeky wave while removing a drop of perspiration from him and the girl beside him. Uzumaki-san. Before Naruto could try to find a way to switch places with a clone and go, his focus was drawn to the board. He couldn't find the time to quickly create a clone, much less create enough distraction to use it as his decoy, because everyone was staring at him. "Could you translate the sentence on the board?" he asked. Naruto squinted at the intended sentence and asked, "To what?" His question caused the class to laugh, which annoyed him a little. He had no idea what class this was, so that was a valid question. It wasn't her fault that he was stuck there, she was only carrying out her duties. Naruto decided to comply after noticing that his aggressive behavior was beginning to annoy the teacher. "To English, please translate it if you would." He glanced at the board, nodded, and then spoke in a dialect that no one had ever heard before, flawlessly. He put his hand to his mouth and exclaimed, "Crap," after realizing what he had said. It was Old English, shifting vernacular is dumb. Choose a precise dialect and use it consistently. With a nervous laugh, he tried again, saying, "I mean, it would be a good idea to go on a nice trip today." Ochi-sensei gave him a long look and raised an eyebrow in question, then let it drop. After all, he did respond to the question, saying, "Very good, Uzumaki-san. Even though you haven't been in school, you show a good amount of grasp on the language." After avoiding a sort of bullet for the time being, Naruto concluded that he might as well be doing something that would be beneficial to him if he wasn't going to be doing anything at all. He started to meditate and try to connect with the natural energy of Karakura town by becoming completely still and blocking out everything else. Until he started using yin chakra and required a knockout punch, it didn't do much to help him defeat the hollows. However, now that he knew what worked, he could start looking for ways to create variations to use it. He earned a living by doing things that people didn't believe were possible, but it was unclear how he was going to accomplish that. He was startled out of his reverie by a loud bell ringing, and as the students filed out of the room, he noticed something about school that might actually convince him to return soon. Those girls' school uniforms might make a great research topic. Then Naruto grinned to himself. Now that he was alone in the room, he had an opportunity. Without a second thought, he opened the window and leapt out, creating a fast clone and giving it orders to keep doing what he was doing, or, more crucially, to gather summersearch if the chance arose. Sunset several hours later, Naruto changed back into his street clothes and started staying on the town's rooftops to avoid being pulled aside by another truant officer who was out busting students or anyone his age, who appeared to be supposed to be in school. Finding a training location for the duration of his stay in Karakura town was Naruto's next task. He needed to develop his fighting skills if he was going to be engaging in all of this hollow combat. He didn't think that the hollow they fought was as strong as they got, because let's face it, his luck wasn't that great. He also didn't think that every time something like the giant hollow that he, Ichigo, and Uryu put down the other day appeared, he could just solve everything with a Rasengan and that would be that. He was on his way to check out a rather promising location that they discovered the other day while searching for Yoruichi with his cage Bunshin. He glanced around as he got there. He ended up in an ancient cemetery. The fact that it was on the outskirts of town and, upon closer inspection, it was ideal for him made it work for him. Almost nobody was going to come around and bother him because the last person buried there had been there more than 50 years ago. Okay. Yin chakra, or Riryoku, or whatever I'm supposed to call it these days. I know what it feels like specifically, Naruto said as he channeled some to his hand after finding a clearing nearby after a brief walk through a forest to avoid upsetting the graves. To Naruto, it seemed as though his hand was covered in a white, ethereal glow. Now chakra is half this stuff and half physical energy. I can hit hollows with my ninjutsu, but it doesn't hurt them like it would a living creature. He said softly to himself, as though he were attempting to explain a theory to himself. If anyone else had been watching, they would have seen nothing. It should hurt a Shinigami though. At the sound of Yoruichi's voice, Naruto grinned and turned to face the golden-eyed woman who, much to his delight and dismay, was dressed this time. "Ha, I knew you were coming this time. No sneaking up on me today." She wore a black shirt underneath that he could see through the neckline of her first shirt, a big beige sash around her waist, tight black pants, long beige leg warmers, long beige wrist warmers, and light brown shoes. Her purple hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Smiling, Yoruichi approached Naruto and said, "I wasn't trying this time though, was I?" Shaking his head, Naruto said, "Maybe, but the fact remains, it has been a long, long time since anyone has successfully gotten the drop on Uzumaki Naruto." He gestured to a tree at the edge of the clearing and added, "I'm also never alone." When Yoruichi followed his direction, he saw another Naruto emerge from the treetop, wave to her, and then vanish in a cloud of smoke. With an admiring gaze, she said, "You have very interesting powers." After giving her a smile, Naruto said, "Maybe to humans. But to spirits I only have one move that I know for sure will work." Yoruichi nodded her head. "You don't know that for sure, and there's only one way to find out for yourself. You need to find a Shinigami and fight one." His expression was dry. "Yes, because I'm so looking forward to facing off against the embodiments of death." He laughed. "Despite a tumultuous and violent start to my life, the vast majority of it has been rather peaceful, and I like that. I really don't feel like going and picking a fight with the only things that I think would be up to the task of killing me. Maybe I can see if that Ichigo kid wants to go a few rounds so I can find out, but other than that I would rather not." "You seem like you're pretty confident in yourself as a warrior. Why do you think you wouldn't be able to match a Shinigami?" Naruto asked, glancing at Yoruichi, who was smiling like the cat that swallowed the canary. "Who said Ichigo was the only Shinigami you knew?" "Because even the strongest shinobi that I grew up around in my time feared and respected the power of the Shinigami." Naruto said, a bit nervous now that he knew that Yoruichi was a Shinigami. "Even if you guys aren't really the one we thought you were, you still carry the name of the Harbinger of Death. And you can't run away from death, no matter how strong you are or no matter how long you've lived. If you guys really are Shinigami, then I think there's a reason that I'm meeting you now." He let out a breath. "I guess my ticket's finally up, huh?" Yoruichi cocked her head sideways and blinked. "What do you mean? You think I'm going to kill you?" was his question. Naruto gave a nod before lowering his head. "Aren't you? I mean, I know what you are. And here we are in the middle of nowhere. I'm not really scared or anything, I've lived long enough, but can you make it not hurt, please?" Incredibly perplexed by what he was discussing, Yoruichi exclaimed, "You're so stupid," before slamming her fist into the side of his face. "You think? You've lived?" Yoruichi struck hard, but she didn't really look it at the time. Very difficult. Some things you never forget, and good fighters never forget things like that. He had been hit almost that hard in an incalculable number of years, and he nearly forgot how to take a punch like that and get up. Looking at Yoruichi, who appeared irate at him, Naruto wiped his bloody lip and peeled himself off the side of the tree that his spine had compressed against. "What the hell was that for?" he asked. Yoruichi replied, "What the hell do you mean? You're talking like you want to die or something. I'm not going to kill you, idiot, I never was. I'm not an active Shinigami in the Gode 13. "What? Well, if you're not here to kill me, then what do you want with me?" Naruto asked, keeping that name in the back of his mind for a future inquiry. "I'm going to need your help soon," Yoruichi acknowledged, "but first we need to talk. What do you mean you've lived long enough? You're still a kid." With a nervous laugh, Naruto said, "Not really. I'm older than I look." As Yoruichi could see, "So you're not 16? Throughout her life, she had witnessed many people age gracefully in the world of the living. "So how old are you, 30? She asked. "Start multiplying." Naruto shook his head, beginning to find this amusing. Eyes narrowing, Yoruichi said, "I thought you said you weren't a Shinigami." Shrugged, "I didn't lie, I'm not. I'm immortal." He noticed that she was looking at him like he were telling her the truth. "It's very complicated. I have a very potent life force, mixed with being completely in tune with nature on a symbiotic level, mixed with the greatest immune system ever conceived and regenerative powers, mixed with having an all-powerful being stuck inside of me sleeping peacefully. All of those things combined made me unable to die by natural causes." He was entirely serious, and Yoruichi couldn't detect any humor or lies in his words. "So how old are you?" he asked. "How old are you?" Naruto asked her with a smile. Yoruichi gave a rather passive response, saying, I don't feel comfortable answering that to you, Naruto Oji-san. Hey, I don't know for sure how old you are, so why can you call me that and I can't do the same? I'm pretty sure Shinigami don't die, so who knows how old you are, Naruto said, digging into his ear without listening. Anything you say, Yoruichi Obachan. Yoruichi stiffened in offense at what he called her. And Shinigami do die, they just live far longer than humans do, Yoruichi said, her eyes glimmering with anger. I'm not that old, I'm only… Yoruichi stopped when she noticed Naruto's mocking smirk. How do spirits die? What happens after they die? Arched Naruto's eyebrow. Actually, never mind, I don't want to know. I haven't even died yet. I don't need to find out too much before my time comes, that's bad luck, he said, waving his hands wildly. Yoruichi grinned broadly and said, you'll think otherwise sooner rather than later. Well anyway, I'm going to be kicking your ass all day today. What? Naruto refused to engage in combat with Yoruichi. He felt himself wanting to do other physical things with her, but fighting was not one of them. One of them might have been harmed while pursuing his goals, but it would have been a positive kind of hurt. Why? Because I don't know what your powers are and I need you to be ready for battle soon. Very soon. You're going to be my secret weapon and I want to make sure you're ready. I want to know exactly what you're capable of so that I know how to train you. Smiled. Yoruichi put her hands on her hips and said, now get ready. In a defensive stance, Naruto said, wait, don't I get a choice in this? Nope. Yoruichi exclaimed joyfully before vanishing from Naruto's view. She's the fastest person I've seen in a long time, I swear. When Naruto positioned himself to block a kick from Yoruichi with his right forearm, the thought that struck him like a lightning bolt was, fuck, that hurt. Is she composed of diamonds? Yoruichi, smiling at the possibility of possibly utilizing more skill than she had anticipated for this fight, said, you either have very good reflexes, or very fast, or both. You blocked my kick. He threw her off his arm and said, I'm the fastest man alive, Yoruichi. And I would say that my reflexes suck because I'm always taking more damage than I should. Naruto managed to smile back through the throbbing pain in his arm, but it didn't matter because it would be like new in a few seconds. He then disappeared from her view, receiving a satisfied laugh from her before she followed suit. They discovered something about each other as they continued to fight across the field. Yoruichi discovered that Naruto had extraordinary hand-to-hand skills. She discovered that he was gleefully matching her hit for hit in every way, even though he had not received any Hakuda training. He attacked from seemingly random angles with wild but seemingly deliberate patterns, and she was never able to get him with any feints and was nearly caught a few times. After blocking another high kick from Yoruichi, Naruto attempted to pull her in his direction to throw her off balance. However, she leapt in his direction and kicked with her free leg, causing him to release his grip on her other leg in order to block that one. He was pushed back by the force of the attack, allowing Yoruichi to safely land on her feet before attacking him again. Since she wasn't that much faster than him and moving that quickly can cause tunnel vision, Naruto's plan shifted to him using his own speed to make her miss him when she attacked. He could eventually wear her down as long as he avoided her directly and was quick enough to get away from her. As a shinobi, Naruto had lived long enough to gain experience fighting against more combat styles than anyone else, even though he wasn't a hand-to-hand savant. For fun, he even went through a phase where he would travel around fighting schools and challenging dojos. A few years later, he slapped himself. He didn't need to be that famous, but he could have earned a good living from fighting if he had waited. The point was that Naruto could confidently state that his proficiency in taijutsu and ninjutsu were on equal footing because he utilized it more than any other part of his abilities and had been using them in one form or another for centuries. Yoruichi saw Naruto dodge her blows and avoid her. How does a normal human get so fast? She asked, even as she was unconsciously increasing her speed. In all my life, I have never heard of anything like this. When she felt the air from one of Naruto's counterpunches tear past her head, she thought, I really need to start stepping it up here. Yoruichi put her elbow into Naruto's stomach, causing him to double over. He ended up receiving a forceful kick to the side of his head before he could strike back, which sent him tumbling to the ground. What the fuck just happened? He asked. Was it a switch she flipped? Yoruichi leaned over and looked down at Naruto. The way I was moving so fast is called Shunpo flash steps. A speed technique that a lot of Shinigami know. I haven't used it in quite some while though. No human eye can keep up with it, so don't feel bad. It took me quite a while to actually get you. I had to take more steps to reach you. I guess I'm out of practice. Naruto jumped to his feet with a whirl kick that caused Yoruichi to return the jump. I haven't had to use this in forever. I hope you aren't as rusty as you think you are, Yoruichi, because you're not the only one with a speed technique. My dad had one faster than your move, way faster, but I could never master it. I still can't, so I found my own way to outclass people with speed. I never really used it in a fight though, no one was around that needed me to try it on. His eyes widened. You're just a human and you can move even faster than this. What kind of mortal are you supposed to be? How good of an eye do the Shinigami keep watch on the world? Naruto asked, wiping the scuff marks from his face. Yoruichi did not intend to harm himself by responding, we're not gods. We simply keep the balance of souls by escorting those that have trouble passing on to the Soul Society as well as protect the world of the living from hollows. We don't interfere anything unless it would disrupt the balance of souls, but that hasn't happened on a wide scale in about 1,200 years, most of the time the problems solved themselves. The last potential event, not counting the Quincy incident 200 years ago, occurred over 500 years ago and was solved before anyone could even begin to mobilize anything to check it out. Laughed, yeah, because I was the one that solved them. I've been the one settling all of that stuff, Yoruichi. And the older I got the better I became at handling mortal business. It's clockwork now for me. You Shinigami need to be paying me a retainer. I've been doing your job since I was 16. Hell, if that's part of your job then I might as well be a Shinigami myself. Damn it. How old are you? You're being really cryptic and anal about this, Yoruichi said, gaping at him before yelling angrily at him. Naruto laughed. Why don't cut me open and count the rings? You'll be here all day. I've always been there, doing my best to keep the peace or at the very least help peace along from the shadows. Do you want an example? I'll give you a recent one. Nodded. If you would, because I have a hard time believing that one man governed the affairs of the entire world. Naruto laughed. Fine, during World War II, or as I like to call it, the big-ass violent waste of my time and effort, stuff kept happening to fighter airplanes and bombers. Stuff no one could explain. If it was going to end too many lives on one side or another and I knew about it, I or a clone of mine would be there to stop it with sabotage. The British called the accidents the work of gremlins. He turned to go. I couldn't do everything though. If I knew about atomic weapons beforehand, those plans would have been lost forever. You say Shinigami aren't gods. Well, neither am I. I've been getting reminders again and again of that fact. I might as well not be here the way things still are. For everything I stop, 5 more problems pop up and people keep going about killing each other. At this fact, Yoruichi could see the sadness in his eyes. In addition to being a great hero for doing what he could for the world, if what he said was accurate, he had personally witnessed the most terrible tragedies and fatalities that humanity could muster. She couldn't understand how, after such a bleak life, his eyes could still seem so bright and lively. Once more, his eyes suddenly became brighter as they met hers once more. Come on, Yoruichi, I'm starting to feel loosened up. Use me to get yourself back up to snuff. I can take it. Because I have to do it too. I haven't had a fight against someone that could kick my ass in centuries. He motioned for her to continue. Go as fast as you think you can handle. That's not a good idea. She replied nervously. You're way stronger than I figured you for, but if I started going all out against you, I don't think you would last too long. Naruto calmed her down by saying, fine. Then I'll just make you change that tune. Crap. He realized that a full-scale altercation was unnecessary. Wasn't he bluffing? Let's see how fast you really are, kitty cat. I hope you like this because it took me a few hundreds of years to learn how to do it. Check out Swift Release. Jinten. Muasho Swift Release. Shadowless Flight. Before Yoruichi felt a sharp pain in her stomach that sent her sliding back until she grounded her feet into the ground and stopped herself. Naruto's body disappeared in an afterimage. Okay, I get the point. No more taking it easy on you, but I'm still faster than you, Naruto said as he stepped back in front of her. As his voice reverberated around her, Naruto vanished from view once more. Show me then. I'm the greatest fast movement user in the Soul Society. Do you really think I can't keep up? I'm insulted, said Yoruichi, laughing as her fingers twitched in anticipation. Don't be insulted. Before many blurs flew from the trees surrounding them, a multitude of voices spoke. Yoruichi questioned whether Naruto was truly that quick to have so many after pictures. She wasn't very quick. It was frightening because she didn't know anyone very well. But then she saw that there were shadows in every picture of Naruto, and she grinned and said, after seeing you take me on with your techniques, I have to say I'm changing my mind about being insulted. The roughly 50 Naruto clones surrounding her echoed in unison, come and get us then. Many of them were destroyed before they even realized what had hit them, so they would soon regret doing so. since the stationary copies only witnessed Yoruichi halting long enough in motion after defeating a clone with pure physical combat and moving on to the next in less than a second, the others only lasted long enough to marvel at how swift Yoruichi could be. She said, "I hope the real you wasn't in there because I might have killed you if you were," as smoke filled the field after she had finished beating all of his clones. "Okay. You're still faster than me. I was dodging and switching places with my clones all through that and still barely got away. They can't use swift release. But I'm not done yet. Let's see how you like this." Yoruichi squinted when she noticed his eyes changing into a swirl pattern, but she was too busy to inquire about it. Banshu Tenin, heavenly attraction of all creation. Naruto reappeared before her with a broad smile. As Naruto extended his hand and pointed to himself, Yoruichi sensed what was about to happen before it actually happened. She instantly spun around to get out of dodge after sensing a pull on her body, but she ended up traveling at the speed of a typical person wading through mud. Naruto felt her strain against his gravitational attack and asked himself, "Why are you so fucking fast?" He was unable to draw her close, saying, "You have so much momentum I can't even pull you towards me an inch." Instead, she was moving away from him despite all the chakra he was using to keep his attack going. Eventually, he released Yoruichi and let her run away so quickly that he heard a crack of air and saw nothing. However, he was able to predict her next move and braced himself for it after he heard a tree moan and noticed a heavy footprint on it. "How high did you jump, please?" He could see a tiny dot in the sky gradually growing larger. "Damn, okay, 10 seconds. He didn't want the area to be destroyed by the force she would produce, even if he managed to avoid it. -5, 4, 3, 2, he hunkered down and prepared for the worst because he didn't feel like searching for a new training location with this much nature. He could see the serious expression on her face as she hurled herself from the sky with her leg up and ready for a heel drop. -1, 0. Shinra Tensei, heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god. When Naruto released her from his attraction technique, Yoruichi nearly lost control, but she quickly regained her composure and made the decision to actually use that momentum, to kick off of a tree and knock him out. She used it to leap into the air because it would have failed if she had simply leapt back off the tree at Naruto. He would still be caught with something even if he moved, unless he was a coward and would run out of the clearing completely to avoid it. As she suspected, he didn't, instead standing there looking frantic, as though he was waiting for something. Then he yelled his assault. Naruto's outward gravity attack clashed with Yoruichi's speed and combined momentum. How much force did his maneuver produce? The force behind it clashed with the force of her kicking power, blowing the tree leaves around as if they were the center of a hurricane, even though it was intensely focused on her alone. The trees would start to emerge from the ground by their roots if this continued. The opposing forces caused Yoruichi and Naruto to bounce away from each other. While Yoruichi was thrown high back into the air and tumbled in a corkscrew motion before landing on her feet and staring at the hole that Naruto had neatly placed himself in, Naruto was smashed firmly into a human-sized hole in the ground. "That was really rough on my legs," she said, stomping back up straight from her landing crouch with a sharp wince. "That was the strongest kick I can recall ever making, but it was just gravity." In front of Yoruichi, Naruto slowly pulled himself out of the hole, covered in dirt and rocks, and stumbled a little as he stood up. "I hate using the Rinnegan. It fucking gives me migraines from hell," he said, his nose bleeding steadily. "Crap." He then vomited on the ground and fell to his knees. "Are you alright?" Yoruichi asked as she rushed to him and discovered him on his hands and knees, gasping for air. After taking several deep breaths and letting the blood from his nose drip, Naruto looked up at her and said, "Yeah, fine. I'm just very rusty. I haven't used swift release or any of my special Rinnegan techniques in forever. Using the Rinnegan without using Sage Mode is a killer." Yoruichi said incredulously, "You could have gone further? You could have too. Don't patronize me. I can see when people are stronger than they want me to see." "You did just enough to keep pace with me," Naruto said, nodding and reclining on his knees to give her a proper look. Yoruichi sighed. "Well, I couldn't just start shooting Kido all over the field. I might just end up killing my secret weapon before I even see what he's capable of. Besides, you don't need to see any of my aces yet, they aren't exactly meant for friendly competition." Before rolling to the side to prevent himself from vomiting, Naruto remarked, "Likewise. Kami, I'm so out of shape, the effects of not having your life threatened on a regular basis, I assume." He gazed up at the sky and the dark night sky with a weary expression before kicking his legs to his chest and jumping to his feet. "Okay, let's keep going. I'm ready when you are." "We're done." Yoruichi smiled broadly. "We already know that your techniques can work on a Shinigami. Your attacks hurt. And you kept pace with me. Granted that wasn't full speed and I'm out of practice. Being in a cat body for 100 years will do that to you. But it was still extremely impressive. All you need is to get back into shape and you're just as strong as I need you to be. Wait. Replied Naruto, that didn't prove anything. All I used on you were my Kage Bunshin, which I already knew could hit you as long as they could see you, my hand-to-hand skills, and a few of my gravity techniques. Everything I used I was sure would work. I still have a laundry list of moves that I'm not sure about, and I don't feel like testing them out in the field just to find out that they crapped out on me. Yoruichi gave him a thoughtful look and was impressed that he still had moves, but she wasn't willing to take the chance that they wouldn't work because she was high. I'll tell you what. Can you meet me somewhere tomorrow? She also needed to make sure he was prepared for when she needed him, which she figured would happen sooner rather than later. Nodding, Naruto accepted a card she gave him and read aloud, Urahara shop. Hey Yoruichi, why do yo? He stopped when he looked up and saw that she had left, saying, Goddamn she's fast. And now it's raining, great. A downpour began. After placing the card in his pocket and looking around for Yoruichi again, he made a few hand seals and said, Shunshin no Jutsu body flicker jutsu. He then disappeared in a cloud of leaves. Rukia was their target. He was solely to blame when they came for her. She was now in trouble since he had to obstruct her path and take away her abilities. Even the ones sent to take her were beyond his control. He was sliced through before he even realized what had happened because that one guy was so quick. Like he didn't exist at all. He was going to die because he lacked the strength to save her. No pain? Am I truly dead, damn it? That must be the reason I don't experience any pain? My body is getting warmer now that I think about it, it's really warm. Oh, you're getting goosebumps, what a relief, Ichigo said as he opened his eyes to see a long-muscled man wearing glasses. When the man was hovering inside a futon, Ichigo screamed in absolute horror and pushed against his face, saying, too close. Get out of my face. The man appeared to disregard Ichigo's discomfort in exchange for calling Urahara into the room. I know who you are, you're with that Getaboshi sandals and hat guy. So why the hell are you in bed with me? He finally shoved him off and sat up, gripping at his body in agony, which he discovered to be bandaged and shirtless. I'm not dead, Ichigo said, clutching at his body in agony. How? Wait, this isn't even my house, he said to himself before turning to look around. What on earth am I doing? With a fan open and in front of his face, Urahara addressed Ichigo-san, saying, well, Tessai was right, you're awake. You shouldn't be moving around, Ichigo-san. Your injury isn't fully healed. If you keep moving around, you can die. So I guess this must be your house, Ichigo said as he approached. Urahara abruptly closed his fan and said, correct. Ichigo said, you saved me, with a sad expression. In a fake offended gesture, Urahara pointed at himself and said, what's with that tone? The way you're talking is like I did something wrong. Wait, Uryu? Tell me he's alive too, is he here? Ichigo thought of another person present at the scene of his defeat, and his focus abruptly shifted to something else. Urahara raised his eyebrows, he's already gone. He lost a lot of blood but his injury wasn't vital. Even if I just left him lying there he wouldn't have died for another 2 days, so I just treated his injury on the spot. A smirk appeared on the odd man's face, come to think of it, when he left he was worried about you. Touching every bandage on his body, Ichigo sneered, yeah right. It's true. Urahara replied casually, I even told him to rest here for a moment, and do you want to know what he said? Thank you for tending to me, however I am fine. Instead I believe you should treat Ichigo. The reason being, because right now the only one that can beat those bastards is not me. Please heal Ichigo, because the only one who can save Rukia is him. Faye, only me? What does he expect me to do? Ichigo recalled Rukia voluntarily accompanying them through that odd portal back to her realm. Rukia is already back at the Soul Society. How can I follow her there? How the hell could I rescue her? There's no way, he snapped. Before he finally spoke, Urahara remained silent and allowed him to vent all of his frustrations at once. Do you really think that there's no other way to get to the Soul Society? He asked in a cryptic manner. There is a way. Tell me how do I do it? Ichigo said, snapping his head in his direction instantly. Urahara explained, of course I'll tell you, but under one condition. Starting now, for 10 days, you're going to be learning how to properly fight with me. He held up the finger that stopped him. You're telling me to fucking train? I don't have time for that. You don't know when Rukia is going to be executed. I should try getting there as fast as possible. Ichigo was not pleased at all. The point I'm trying to make to you here is that you will die if you go there as you are. There is no maybe, there is no doubt. You will be slaughtered, Urahara said sarcastically, causing Ichigo to shudder at his tone. I let you fight them the last time on purpose. I thought you would get the picture if you fought them and saw for yourself. With your current skill you will die the second they realize what's going on. You're weak. Stop being such a child, saying you're going in to rescue Rukia. Urahara sighed and slammed the tip of his cane onto Ichigo's forehead, forcing him back onto the bedding. The Soul Society usually gives a month-long grace period maximum in a convict's execution, same for Rukia-san. We will be taking 10 days, just to mess with you in particular. Ichigo's eye twitched at this idiot who was still trying to razz him while acting serious. It will take 7 days to open the door that will take you there, so after you arrive in the Soul Society you still have 13 days. Plenty of time. Ichigo noticed Urahara's utterly serious expression and heard the edge in his voice when he stood up, letting Ichigo go. Will I really get stronger in just 10 days? Ichigo asked after a prolonged period of silence. As his bucket hat shaded his eyes, Urahara replied with a cunning smile, of course. If you really want to save Rukia, that is. A strong will is stronger than steel. If your determination is anything less than full bore, then don't even bother going. Can you seriously be determined to fight and give it your all for 10 days? Well, if I don't do it, no one will. Ichigo scratched his head and looked at Urahara resolutely. I guess I don't have a choice, let's give it a try, he said. Without allowing Ichigo to question him about how he knew, Urahara exclaimed, excellent, and walked out of the room. We'll start tomorrow. I need to fix up some medicine so that you don't drop dead in the middle of the training, but I do want you to go to school tomorrow as well. It's the last day after all. After Urahara passed by, Yoruichi, who was in cat form, asked him, so you're going to go ahead and send him? You do know that the chances of him pulling this off are slim and none, don't you? From behind his fan, Urahara smiled at the cat and said, what's the fun in life without taking a few chances every now and then? Besides, he'll do fine with some polish, and we'll do that once I get him his powers back. Without missing a beat, Yoruichi asked, you're going to send those kids with him as well, aren't you? The ones that showed signs of having powers as well. The quirky store owner chirped, the more the merrier. Well, what if I said I felt like going as well? Yoruichi grinned, having at last reached the main point of her discussion. Go ahead. Urahara said enthusiastically, if you're feeling a little homesick you might as well go on and head back for a bit when it's going to be nutty for sure anyway. She went on, and I wanted to take someone with me? Urahara began to feel deflated. I can't go back. You know that the exile won't let me get even close. Old man Yamamoto would burn me to a crisp and lock me away if I showed back up around that place. Getting his full attention, she said, I found someone very interesting that I think the team would benefit from having. Not you per se. Benefit how? Inquired Urahara. With her piercing white teeth, Yoruichi grinned at him and said, let's just say that he's my ringer, so to speak. The Urahara shop the next day. As he stood in front of the unassuming store, Naruto asked himself, why did Yoruichi want me to come here? From the store's porch, a young boy with red hair said snottily, hey mister, are you going to buy something or are you just going to stand outside looking stupid all day? Loitering is illegal, you know? With a completely straight face, Naruto said to the child, I don't even know what this place sells, so I don't know yet. Is there someone named Yoruichi around here? This person might be in cat form, for the sake of reference. After sweeping the porch, a girl the boy's age, with black hair and a serene demeanor, looked up at him and said, oh, I can go see if they're here mister, just wait for a moment. When Naruto said, thank you very much, can I get your name sweetheart? He grinned and nodded at the girl. My name is Ururu sir, and this is Jinta. I'll be back in a moment. Who are you by the way so that I can relay the message? The girl said as she began to walk towards the shop's door and turned to face him. Naruto smiled at her and said, Uzumaki Naruto, the immortal sage of toads, balance, and the shinobi arts. Ururu said, can I help you kid? And hurried inside to find someone to assist him, leaving Naruto and Jinta alone outside. Jinta suddenly said to Naruto, you don't look very tough, or like a sage. Aren't sages old men or something? He smiled at him, kid I am older than you could possibly imagine. Do not get me started, but you do remind me of someone from a long time ago. And I'm tougher than you, that's all that really matters right now. After saying, you think so huh? Jinta suddenly drew a huge cannaboo and swung it at Naruto. Jinta home run, he exclaimed as his blow struck. Jinta, why are you beating a log to death with your weapon? When Jinta turned around, She saw Urahara standing in the doorway with Yoruichi and Ururu in cat form. Urahara pointed and smiled. "What are you talking about? I hit some stupid blonde guy that kept saying he was a sage." When Jinta saw a smashed log on the ground, he followed his finger and his eyes widened in shock. "What? But where is the other guy?" he asked. "And the next generation of suckers learns the value of the log," Naruto said, grinning, as he emerged from the store's grounds. "Kawarimi no Jutsu substitution jutsu will never die." Jinta yelled at him. "How did you do that? And where did you get the log?" Naruto smirked at Jinta and said, "And I did it because I can, because I'm awesome, because I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and you'd better recognize that." Clinging to his chest in a vulnerable way, he said, "The log comes from the heart. When you feel the pull, you just know what it is by instinct and let the log take you to the sweet, sweet sanctuary of safety." Urahara interrupted, "Uzumaki Naruto? Is that really your name?" Naruto nodded and gave him a blank stare, which made Urahara scream like a girl and dash back into the store. Naruto turned to face the other people outside, who shared his confusion. Urahara returned outside after a short while and said, "I need you to sign these. Make them out to Urahara Kazuki," while holding up a pen and a number of books. Naruto smiled at him and began to sign. "Sweet, a fan. I don't get to talk to many of them, seeing as how my actual physical identity is a really well-kept secret. Here you go, stay cool Kazuki. Uzumaki Naruto, Dadbeo." "Books?" Jinta responded. "What kind of books does a stupid-looking guy like that write?" After glancing at Jinta, Urahara opened his mouth to say, "I'll tell you when you're older and can properly enjoy. Just know that this is a great, great man that deserves your respect and the respect of every red-blooded man alive." However, he quickly realized that Yoruichi and, more significantly, Ururu were still standing there. When he was done signing, Naruto said shyly, "Ah, I'm not that great, I'm just carrying on a legacy." Before Tessai showed up and put the books away for him so that no one could take them and look through them, Urahara held his collection close to him like a child. "Now what can I do for you today in my humble establishment, Uzumaki-san?" he asked, coughing in his hand to restore the normal atmosphere. "I asked him to come here, Kazuki." Yoruichi responded, "He's the one that I want to bring." With an approving gaze on Naruto, Urahara asked, "Are you sure? He's just a kid, no older than Ichigo." He grinned. "Naruto, if you would please start generating some of your yin chakra for the sake of the conversation." "How much?" replied Naruto. "I kind of don't want to bring any hollows down, or is that how this works?" Yoruichi responded smugly, as though concealing something from everyone else. "The amount that you used to keep pace with me should be more than enough to get the point across." The atmosphere was so full of Ichigo's own Riryoku. Kazuki probably couldn't get a good read on yours back when you fought that Manos. If he had, you wouldn't be asking this question. Before focusing, Naruto shrugged and remarked, "You're the boss, air cat air, whatever. Sorry if it takes a while to get it all going. I'm used to channeling all of my chakra. Splitting it is something I'm not really used to yet, so bear with me if you don't mind. I know this isn't much, but I'll get the rest going." Jinta and Ururu's eyes widened instantly as soon as they felt the power emanating from Naruto. Does he not consider this to be much? If that's the case, then he should have as much in his system as Ichigo does in theory, and he seems to be able to control it unlike him, Urahara pondered, holding his fan in front of his face. "That's all I need to see." Urahara ended Naruto's generation. As he paused and turned to face Urahara, Naruto said, "But that wasn't nearly what I was using when me and Yoruichi started going faster. I can still do more." Smirking and gesturing to his fan, Urahara remarked, "Yes, but I think that's all my helpers can take at the moment." He pointed to a shell-shocked Ururu and a panting Jinta, saying, "You kind of caught them off guard on that one." "Sorry kids." Naruto said to the kids, "I didn't mean to surprise you like that. I'm just used to using a lot of power to do, well, anything. It's kind of hard for me to gauge what's a little and a lot to others, or hold back in fighting, or anything really." "Okay, he's in. You can take your boy toy to the Soul Society when I send Ichigo," Urahara said, turning to face Yoruichi. Wait, hold on a second," Naruto intervened. "I don't know what's going on, but what about the Ichigo guy, and what the hell is a Soul Society?" An extremely lengthy explanation will follow. Naruto and the others were seated around a table in Urahara's shop. "So you're telling me that the Rukia chick is another Shinigami, and she was taken back to the Soul Society to be executed just for giving Ichigo the power to save his family from a hollow in her place?" they asked after providing him with a crash course on spirits. In addition to that, You're going to have the boy wonder himself lead a team that he doesn't even know about yet to go and get her back. As Ururu entered and set the tea for everyone, Urahara said, pretty much. So are you in or what? Urahara asked. Naruto's gaze widened. You want me to go to the place where dead souls go? Fight not just one, not just two, not even a baker's dozen, but an entire army's worth of shinny fucking gammy. An idea that I'm still just getting used to, mind you, with a bunch of baby-faced brats, most of which haven't the faintest idea of what it really means to be in a fight for their lives. Yoruichi and Urahara both said, yes. He took a deep breath and raised his hand. This is another one of those choices that isn't really a choice, is it? On one hand, if I go, chances are that I will be killed, and then killed again in a horrible and brutal fashion because they are not going to just leave my soul to roam up there after killing me only once. I will be on edge for however long we're there, and I will probably die trying to get everyone out in one piece once everything goes to hell because I have a hero's complex that I have cultivated over a countless number of years of good deeds. He then lowered the other and started to balance them. On the other hand, if I don't go, then they most certainly will die, since none of them have the faintest idea of how to infiltrate a home of the blind and deaf, let alone a military stronghold. I will feel guilty for the entire month because of the story you told me about the Rukia girl, and will feel even guiltier that I let those poor kids die, and I will miss out on my chance to be one of the few living humans to have actually seen death itself firsthand and come back to gloat about the tale. Yoruichi and Urahara exclaimed, and, taking a close look at both of his hands, Naruto said, you ask as if I really had a choice. I'm in, and I hate you both for this. You both owe me money. I'm a shinobi, not a charity case. You said you go around helping those that need it, Yoruichi said, blinking. Yoruichi jumped into Naruto's lap and asked him to pet her, but I'm still not ready. What am I going to do? Naruto sneered, I do. But some things I can't do for free. I need to eat too. All of this awesome doesn't run off of kudos and thank yous. Well, you have 10 days until I open the gate for Ichigo to leave. Urahara replied with kindness. He has to get prepared to go himself. You can do the same. Grumbled Naruto. I need to get battle experience against a Shinigami to whip my ass back into shape, and so that I know what to expect. You won't let me fight Ichigo, I'm sure of that. Urahara brightly stated, because you would tear him apart like a jackal on raw meat as he is now. Yoruichi nodded in agreement. Exactly. Naruto replied, no offense, but his moves are sluggish and he telegraphs his strikes with that sword. But I could always keep sparring with Yoruichi, I guess. He was shocked when she jumped out of his lap and said, sorry, Naruto, no can do. You're already ready as far as I saw, and if what you told me is true, and I have some others to get ready. The kids that will be assisting Ichigo need guidance to learn to use their powers, her words. Naruto angrily exclaimed, so what the hell am I going to do? Fight with oxygen for a week and a half? If you're that desperate for a training partner, I have an idea for you. All it requires out of you is an open mind and unbreakable balls of steel. Yoruichi seems to have high belief in you, so why not? Urahara said with a smile that didn't look good for Naruto. Those two things have categorized my entire life from day one. What do you want me to do? Naruto asked, blinking at him before answering. Urahara began writing, nothing much, just go here and say this. Everything else will take care of itself. After glancing at Urahara's writing, Naruto complained, I sure am being sent on a lot of errands, aren't I? Are you sure this is going to help me? It seems like a waste of time. With a smile behind his fan, Urahara answered, you won't be disappointed. Yoruichi glared at him and said, are you trying to kill my charge, Kazuki? Why, Yoruichi, I'm appalled. I would never do such a thing to any ally of yours. Naruto-san here is a friend and I am a great fan of his. Everything I am doing is beneficial. Urahara mumbled the next part, to multiple parties. With a certain presence approaching, he said, oh, Naruto, could you hide for a moment? Someone important is here. Urahara pretended to be hurt and turned away so that no one could see his smile. Naruto responded, I'll just leave. I want to see what this place you're forcing me to go to is all about, and there's no time like the present. He then vanished in a whirlpool of leaves, adding, catch you guys in 10 days, I guess. Stupid idiot, now I'll have to sweep that up, Jinta said, palming his face. As she hopped out of the open window, Yoruichi glanced at the trail Naruto had left behind and said, I think I should leave as well. I have the others to prepare as well. Talk to you soon, Kazuki. Before opening the front door, Urahara got up and said, welcome, how are your wounds? With a series of faint scars visible on his shirt, Ichigo stood in front of Urahara and said, recovered. That's good. Well, shall we begin? the man in the bucket hat said earnestly. This is a complete red herring, said Naruto, standing out in front of a remote warehouse and frowning because he could see, hear, or feel nothing at all. Why am I here? My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I've come to kick some Shinigami reject ass. Please line up single file and I promise it will be quick and exact, he said, pulling out the card on which Urahara had written his instructions and what he was to say when he got there. He looked at what he had just read inquisitively, asking, what is this, an offer or a challenge? Before the facility's door opened and a short, blonde girl with stubby pigtails emerged. An irate voice roared, what did you just say, you dead son of a bitch? She was wearing flip-flops and a red jogging suit. Who are you and what made you want to come and commit suicide like this? She glared at Naruto with a pronounced fang protruding from the right side of her mouth. Naruto started laughing uncontrollably, saying, Oi, look at this shit. Did I just call out a pygmy for a fight or something? Is Urahara high? Why the hell did he send me here? What does he think I'm going to get out of this? A rather lively assortment of people emerged as the door opened further. Everyone is looking at Naruto with suspicion and hostility. The first girl who responded to him smirked at his fear of the people looking down at him. At the sound of steel sliding, Naruto glanced down at what Urahara had written down again, seeing a chibi drawing of Urahara smiling with a fan and the words, good luck, stay alive. They were all brandishing their swords at him when he lowered the note. Sweating profusely, Naruto read the final words Urahara had instructed him to write on the note. I don't know what this means exactly, but no masks please. A battered and ragged Naruto lay on the ground inside a sizable training area designed to resemble a mountainous wasteland as his senses fully returned to him. He was breathing deeply and his clothes were soaked in blood and nearly torn to rags. His eyes were swollen, but they were healing quickly, as were all of his other many wounds, which his tormentors frequently exploited. Depending on how badly beaten he was, they let his carcass sit in the sun for 30 to an hour before picking him back up and kicking his ass once more. At first, it was good. Fantastic fighting. They kicked each other's asses everywhere, especially the girl he called out at the beginning. It was enjoyable. Though he liked her in particular, she resisted him at every turn, even slapping him repeatedly with a sandal. He fought her tooth and nail for a few hours before she replaced him with one of the others. He didn't mind because these guys were really strong and he had nothing but energy to burn. These guys had it all on that front. No two fought alike. When one didn't feel like fighting, they would switch him out and he would continue fighting, experiencing different combat styles. It was fantastic. Without exception, it was the best training he had ever received. However, everything eventually deteriorates. Furthermore, he had little chance of winning if he faced them one after the other, each time up against a new opponent. But they refused to stop, and he had no intention of acting like a jerk and calling a timeout. He was outlasted by no one, not even by a group of 8 people at one point. Before he had to rest, he would outlast and deal with at least 2. As a result, he continued to fight, using the brief 1 to 10 minute breaks between fights as vital energy to keep going. 3 days have passed since then. He had 7 more to go. Even though he kicked their asses too badly for simple rest and time to fix, the big guy with the pink hair, green suit, mustache, and gentle manner was there to help them recover. They were all fresh from repeated rest. He was depending on me, myself, and I because no one else was taking care of that for him. You still alive down there, Uzumaki? Asked a tall, muscular man with silver hair, dressed in a purple tank top, green cargo pants, black combat boots, and orange fingerless gloves, as he peered down at Naruto prodding his body with his foot. I swear to Kami and the original Rikudo Sennin himself, I swear on my name as Uzumaki Naruto. I swear on my damned uber sexy whisker marks. I am going to kick all of your asses so hard your backsides will have permanent ball court grip. Naruto sat up painfully and slowly stood up, then swished his mouth around and spat out a mouthful of blood. You've had your time. Tag out already. I want someone else to kick my ass. Naruto moaned and glared at the man as best he could, enhanced by the Rinnegan. You. He pointed to a woman with green short hair wearing a white bodysuit, orange gloves, orange boots, and an orange scarf to match the goggles on top of her head. His finger moved to where the others were seated and paused on one of them. When she saw that he was speaking to her, she brightened up and said, "Cutie. You look way too bored over there and that's a crime. Get in here." She brightened her smile and leapt from her chair. When he reached the resting place, the silver-haired man held out his hand and rubbed his neck, saying, "Looks like it's your turn, Mashiro. I swear, this guy's made of the toughest stuff in the world." To put it another way, the girl joyfully put out her own arm and slapped the man's palms, finally Kensai. I've been waiting forever to fight Fishcake again. From where he was waiting to fight, Naruto roared in a tantrum. Goddammit, that joke is thousands of years old. It means maelstrom, damn it. Now get your ass over here and fight me before I puke again from overexertion. I haven't eaten in 3.5 fucking days and my stomach will notice if I stop. As she approached Naruto, Mashiro exclaimed, coming, Zanpakuto or no Zanpakuto? You haven't used it yet, why mess with a good thing? He screamed, gesturing for her to comply. Now bring it. Let's see if any of you can break the time record of putting me down this time. I haven't been beaten faster than 4 hours total yet for all of you combined. She shouted back, I'll put you down in 20 minutes, and then vanished in a flash of speed. He said, I'm still using swift release and you ain't as fast as Yoruichi, and then followed suit. In the center of the field, Naruto and her engaged in combat, with his fist striking the flat of her foot. As he made hand seals, Naruto yelled, Doden. Kusari no Yobi Earth Release. Call of Chains. You do have one hell of a kick on you though, but I'm glad to say that for the most part, my ninjutsu still works on you guys. Shinigami beware my murder face. In an effort to seize and bind Mashiro for Naruto's advantage, Naruto slammed his hands into the ground, causing 9 thick chains to emerge and shoot out of the ground at her. But even though Mashiro wasn't as quick as Yoruichi, she was still far and beyond quick enough to avoid Naruto's chains, avoiding them entirely and attacking him directly while he was concentrating on keeping them in motion. At first glance, the girl appeared to be small and unassuming, but she had been keeping up with Naruto and occasionally surpassing him in speed and pure hand-to-hand skill. In addition, there were times when she kicked him, making him feel like a baseball that had been drilled for a liner. Naruto mumbled, shit, before dropping the chains, slamming his hands into the ground, and making more hand seals in a flurry of fingers. Doden. Doryu Taiga Earth Release, Mudflow River. Mashiro was literally caught slipping when she slipped on the ground beneath her, which had turned into a stream of mud that was rapidly moving towards Naruto. This is gross fishcake, she exclaimed as she found herself nearly directly on Naruto, who had his fist cocked back to strike the defenseless girl, because she had been heading straight for him the entire time because he hadn't moved and she was so much faster than his jutsu. Well, he believed she was powerless. That memo never reached her. Naruto yelled, "Ah, damn it, I can't see," as a big blob of mud struck his eyes. He saw Mashiro directly in front of him as he leapt to clear his eyes. She yelled, "Mashiro drop kick," before slamming her feet into Naruto's body and sending him hurtling through the air. He was unaware of the ceiling's height and didn't want to, so he stopped in midair and just hung there. She shouted to him, "Hey, that's right, I forgot you can do that too. That's good," before following him into the air to continue fighting. This grueling little torture session had taught him a very important lesson, one that he would undoubtedly apply once he located Urahara to exact revenge. Shinigami was still able to use his ninjutsu. He didn't initially understand the nature of the hollows he battled, but if he could see them and had a spiritual awareness of them, he could attack them with a blow that would be as obvious as if he were punching them. That's good to know. The way they looked when he began tossing his ninjutsu around made the experience of being kicked around much more bearable. Priceless. He quickly corrected them that the two were similar but not the same, and he didn't need to call out the names of the attacks that he knew better than others. They called it Kido, especially with the incantation. All bets were off after that, and any hope that any of them had of holding back perished there as they went all out. Ninjutsu versus Kido. When he first arrived in town, he attempted to electrocute a hollow, and they claimed they had no idea why it didn't work because it hurt them enough. He had complained that his jutsu didn't really work on the hollow. The realization dawned on him after Kensai rang his bell for the 3rd time. Elemental advantages are still present, but they are amplified because all hollows are spirits. To speak against the first one, he tried a ninjutsu on him because he had just been unlucky on both sides of the draw. They were composed of the most basic and unprocessed form of reishi spirit particles, which could still take the form of a physical body, much like a biju, but were not as powerful or able to interact with the environment as a whole. They were also not composed of the same earthly materials that people and other things were, which required that they have the same genetic composition. Since hollows were exempt from that rule, their elemental affinities were more in tune than those of an untrained human. This is why some hollows were able to fly faster than others wind. Some were tougher than others earth. Some had natural defenses that were violently effective or could pierce through nearly anything lightning. Some were very elusive and difficult to catch water, and some had body types that matched attacks of incredible power, regardless of how weak or unspectacular the hollow itself was. Fire. The issue was not that a portion of the chakra was physical. The issue was that the physical component of the attack would be completely negated if it was the hollow's element. This would leave him with a jutsu that only had half a kick, which was insufficient to harm a hollow that shared the element. How did he come up with this idea? Which of his new friends came to his aid? None of them, unless you include the relentless struggle that kept his heart racing and enabled him to think in order to assist. They did assist in their own rather sadistic way, though, as the amount of time between fights added up, particularly when you were unable to move. Mashiro joyfully exclaimed, "I'm going to knock you out, fish cake," as she deflected one of Naruto's kicks with her own. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, "You all say that." While the others sat on the sidelines and watched, the two kept fighting hand to hand across the field. As he alternated between reading a manga and watching Naruto battle Mashiro, a tall man wearing a green jogging suit, sunglasses, and an odd star-shaped afro said, "Aside from blacking out every few hours, he's been going non-stop. You've got to admit it's pretty impressive. And he took the whole revelation of a visored thing pretty well too. I think part of that had to do with Hiyori's foot getting stuck in his windpipe during the explanation process, but I get your point, love. Sigh, I'm kind of sick of fighting him though. He's like a nuclear generator, he never fucking runs out of energy. Give him a little downtime and he's right back up in your face." "That's dangerous," said a blond man wearing a newsboy cap and a seemingly endless smile as he observed the altercation. Chomping at the bit to get back in there, the blonde girl Naruto had first snubbed on his arrival exclaimed, "Shut up Shinji, I'm not through fighting him. I haven't extracted my pound of flesh from his dumbass yet." Mashiro kicked. "Heads up," Shinji yelled, grabbing Hiyori and holding her out in front of him like a human shield as Naruto rocketed through the air at him. "Incoming, Hachi. Barrier now," he said, as a quick barrier flew up around them as Naruto's body smacked off the side of it and stuck to it back first like a bug on glass. "That was close," he said before being decked in the face by an irate blonde girl who then repeatedly stomped on his face. "For the last time, that's not an actual attack. You just shouted your own name and kicked the shit out of me. It actually has to do something special to count," Naruto thought to himself before shaking off the cobwebs and glaring back at Mashiro. "It hit you, didn't it, swirly eyes? That should be special enough," she responded with a scream. "And you guys are lazy. You made Hachi throw up that barrier just because you didn't want to move your asses. Gah, I'm so pissed I'm going to," Naruto muttered in response. Looking back at the other Vizards, "I wasn't even using Rinnegan this time." His tirade was interrupted by blood dripping from his nose and his body falling off the barrier to the ground. Mashiro proudly yelled, "Yes, I'm the one that finished you this time, fishcake," as she returned to Naruto and the others. Naruto said feebly, "Didn't count. I just ran out of chakra. Just give me a few." He closed his eyes and went dark. He looked at Naruto and said, "I don't think he's getting up this time." He whistled lowly, "What a marathon though." The man had long hair and was wearing a black suit and a white shirt with frills. "I'll say love. 3 days with no real breaks in between, you've got to love that stamina." A woman wearing a school uniform, red glasses, and a ponytail nodded. "Okay, Hachi can heal him and we can let him rest up. I'll check the bag he brought and see if he brought any clothes." The woman got up. Shinji laughed. "You just want to use that as an excuse to go through his stuff and potentially see the guy naked when you change him, don't you, Lisa?" Lisa left to get Naruto's belongings without responding. He said, "I'm terribly sorry about that. The others haven't had any sort of activity like this in a long time and you were a good target to vent some long-standing aggression." Hachi, a large man, moved over Naruto and erected a barrier around him. As she strode over to Naruto, who was starting to come to, Hiyori exclaimed, "Stop apologizing, Hachi. This dumbass came and called us out. He's just lucky he told us no mask beforehand and asked nicely." "How did he even know about that?" Love asked, glancing first at Naruto and then at the others. When Naruto shakily held up a piece of paper, Hachi took it, read it, and then gave it to Shinji, who grasped it right away, deactivating the barrier. He approached Naruto and knelt down over the barrier Hachi had built to protect his wounds. "Oh, Urahara. Well, that explains it. Okay, we told you that we're Vizards, but do you know what that actually is?" Naruto shook his head. "No. Are you from the Gode 13? He asked. "I barely know what that is." "What's a Vizard?" said Naruto, shaking his head feebly. Shinji looked at Naruto gravely and said, "A Vizard is a Shinigami that has developed hollow powers." A mask resembling a pharaoh appeared over his face, increasing the pressure in the room. "Like this, see?" Shinji asked. As Hachi's healing started to take effect, Naruto's eyes grew wide. Whoa! How do you get powers like that? He asked. He chuckled, not by choice I should say. I'm going to skip the boring part since I don't really trust you, but long story short we were forcefully given these powers. We never asked for them. With a thoughtful nod, Naruto closed his eyes and said, I can understand that. What you're talking about isn't that much different from me honestly. And what exactly would some dopey-looking guy like you know about something like this? Sneered Hiyori as she touched Hachi's barrier. Naruto asked Hachi nicely, can you let the barrier go now? Thanks a lot. Your healing barrier worked really fast, you're good. My time-space regression doesn't work that fast, Hachi said, bowing to Naruto in compliance. What incredible capacity for healing. Hey, I was talking to you. Don't ignore me, damn it, Hiyori snarled at Naruto. Naruto smirked and said, and you can use the mask. Well, now that I know what the masks are, shall we continue? Just you and me, he turned to face her. Everyone, including Hiyori, stared at him in astonishment. You know you just signed your own death warrant, right? Hachi, put up a barrier so that no one feels this, she said with an evil smile. Naruto jumped back to his feet and said, yeah. Just get back out here so we can do this. This is what you wanted the entire time, right? He said, using Shunshin to reappear in the center of the battlefield. Quickly following instructions, Hiyori moved to stand directly in front of Naruto, pointing at him while drawing her Zanpakuto and saying, is this what you really want? You're going to be sorry. As a skeletal mask with diamond markings across the brow and a horn on the forehead formed over Hiyori's face, Naruto remarked, just do it and let me be the judge of that. He then felt a rather oppressive aura spread over the area. Man, that has some kick to it, he said. So how do you like this? She asked, smirking at him as she lifted the mask. That's really strong, this is great, Naruto said with a nervous laugh before he started to laugh slowly. This is absolutely great. I don't think I'm going to stomp a mudhole in Urahara anymore when I see him again. He introduced me to you guys. I think we're going to get along just fine, he said, his laughter growing louder and louder over time, confusing everyone in the room. With her brown iris and black sclera, Hiyori gazed at him bewilderedly and said, why would you thank him? I'm about to kick your ass. I want to thank him because he introduced me to all of you. A bunch of people. Naruto's eyes became orange as a series of odd markings appeared on his body, beginning at a spiral on his navel and spreading from his stomach across his torso. Who are just like me? Naruto exclaimed as a yellow shroud engulfed his entire body and released energy in the form of flames. Hiyori gave him a startled look. Their own power was equal to the power emanating from him. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but it felt nearly the same. Are you a Vizard too? You said you weren't a Shinigami? She asked. I never lied to you. This thing inside of me isn't a hollow. It's not just spiritual, it's also something physical. Everyone can see and sense this, not just those that are spiritually aware, everyone. I'm not a Shinigami. Naruto replied truthfully with a calm face that was still perplexing everyone. I hold something inside of me known as a Biju. A living corporeal mass of chakra which is the combination of spiritual and physical energy. I haven't had to do this in a very long time. I didn't think I would ever find anyone else like me ever again. Hiyori allowed her disguise to fade. She had too many questions for a fight at this time, so she no longer wanted one with Naruto. What do you mean, like you? How are any of us like you? She asked. Naruto allowed his enhanced strength to wane, because I didn't ask for this power to be put into me either, but I fought for control of it just like you all had to for the sake of myself and the people around me, because I know a hollow would never just freely give you control and cooperate peacefully, same with me and mine. From the sidelines, Shinji inquired, what are you? I'm just your average everyday immortal, Jinchuriki, sage, shinobi. Nothing too out of the ordinary. I travel around, doing this and that here and there, and Naruto said, smiling at the other Vizards. I'm your biggest fan. I've read every story you've ever written. All 45 volumes of the Icha Icha series. Lisa exclaimed, unexpectedly grabbing Naruto in a tight embrace and shocking the hell out of the others who had never seen her act like this. I write books, Dadbeo. Naruto smiled as he felt Lisa press his face against her bosom. Well, this is a refreshing change of pace. I mean, before this you were trying to kill me with your sword, now you're trying to kill me in a far more pleasant way. He attempted to look up at Lisa, but found it difficult because she was smothering him. Lisa released him. I just saw your manuscript for the next series, but I couldn't read it. It's in some language I can't understand. Naruto laughed and said, I do that because it's the language I used as a child. It kind of fell out of practice as the years wore on, so no one is around that can really translate it. He actually began to pay attention and noticed that Love, Shinji, and Rose were gathered around him, their faces beaming with admiration. Yes? He asked. Shinji made a face at him. You're Uzumaki Naruto? The Uzumaki Naruto? Your books never had your picture? No one did? Naruto was beaming. I published the books myself. My sensei wrote the first volume that had the first 3 books. I just kept re-releasing them over and over again throughout history before I started writing my own follow-up volumes like 150 years ago. People kept on thinking that it was just a passed-down pen name for anonymity, but no, I'm immortal. He started to cry. Love and Rose shouted to him, "Can we have your autograph?" and held out books for him to sign. After giving a nod, Naruto instantly created a Kage Bunshin to sign in his place. So how exactly do you get the inspiration for these books? Lisa asked, slinking up to his side and averting her gaze from him due to her flush. The back of his head was rubbed. Because I've been alive for a long, long time. And in that long, long time I have seen and done many, many things. Things that I have chronicled in some way in book form. All of the stuff that happens in those books is stuff that is loosely based on things that I've done. Every separate volume of adventure arcs is a separate adventure of mine. So the stories about the wandering warrior traversing the desert kingdoms? Shinji asked with excitement, getting in his face. Nodding, Naruto said, "Yep, me." The same thing happened to Love and the ones about the man traveling the American plains in the expansion era, mingling with pioneer and Indian alike? Good times, Naruto acknowledged, except the pioneer men were really kind of assholes, but Indians are totally cool. What about the series in Renaissance Italy and Germany? Was Rose's own question to wrap them up. After giving himself a thumbs up, Naruto shivered a little and said, "Good thing I'm so clean and healthy. The bubonic plague was gross." Lisa questioned, "And, you did everything in those books?" she added. After giving her a thorough examination, Naruto asked, "Would you like to find out?" It has been a long time, but there are some things you never forget how to do. Rather than responding, he hit his face with a sandal, sending him flying. "Stop hitting me with that damn thing," he said, glaring at Hiyori as he stood up angrily. Hiyori screamed back, "Stop being a pervert," and threateningly pointed the offending pair of shoes at him. Not being a pervert is boring. Maybe you should try it. You might not be so high-strung if you actually got some every now and then. Naruto shook his fist at her. "How does that keep hitting me? It's not even moving that fast," he said as a sandal flew across the room and hit him in the face, sliding off and leaving footprints. It was question time now that the situation had subsided and all of the Visored had recovered from their irrational hostility. They all returned to the hideout's warehouse section and sat down. When Shinji began asking, "So why did Urahara send you here to get your ass kicked?" Naruto was finally able to change his nearly destroyed clothes and eat some ramen-style food. "I didn't get my ass kicked. I think I did awesome considering you all came at me back to back one after the other," Naruto said, pausing his meal to give him a mild glare. "But Urahara sent me here so that I could learn how to fight a Shinigami." "Why would you go to the Saratii for anything?" The laid-back blonde man asked his new acquaintance with the spiky hair. "You're not even a spirit, you're a human. A strong human, but still a human one. Why would you want to go do something like that?" Sighing, "A friend wants me to. And if I don't go then who knows what will happen. Some other kids that have never dealt with anything like this before are going to rescue a friend that's going to be executed for no good reason." "Been there, done that," Lisa interrupted, sticking her head out of one of her novels. "Anyway," Naruto went on, "I'm also really curious. I mean, it's gotten to the point that nothing on earth can put me down anymore, so Kami, in his or her infinite wisdom and desire to see me struggle, has decided to introduce me to the spiritual side. I don't know what to think yet. This entire situation is less than a week old for me." With a playful grin, Shinji asked him, "You scared?" Naruto looked at him, "Nope. It's just progression at this point. What more is there for me to experience in life at this point? I'll tell you. Death. You can't run away from it no matter how much bonus time you're given. Apparently this is my time for a little run-in with it." "Wow, you're a cool guy, Fishcake. I like you," Mashiro said, sitting between the two at the table and observing them as they conversed. Shinji let out a sigh and said, "I think I like him too. You like him because he's the first new person we've met in about 100 years. He let us kick his ass, he doesn't care that we have hollow sides, and he doesn't think you're annoying." Love, Rose, and Lisa all added, "Me too," while displaying signed copies of Naruto's books. Kensai barked at the others, "How can you just accept the guy like that? He may have that strange power inside of him, but it doesn't feel anything like ours. It feels like our opposite, full of life. Kensai was staring at Naruto as he stopped. Well, that's because I used the yang cloak of my Jinchuriki form when I used it. It's easier to make the yang cloak than the other one that I have, and when I make the yin cloak, the cloak made out of Riryoku, it burns through my chakra faster than the other that's more akin to pure ki, which is yang chakra. I find more of a use with the yang than the yin too. Kensai shook his head when he saw Naruto staring at him blankly with noodles hanging from his mouth, saying, never mind. You can't hold your form forever either? He asked, more to himself than to Naruto. Just like us, are you sure you're not really our predecessor or something? Because the things that you're saying about this power in you seem more and more familiar. Hiyori continued to pace the warehouse, muttering, well, I still don't like him. I don't trust him. What if he's been sent here to destroy us off of orders? He could just be trying to befriend us to learn about us before he takes us out. Naruto shrugged and finished his noodles before starting to slurp down the broth. With a little burp, Naruto stopped eating and turned to face Hiyori. No one gives me any kind of orders, I do what I want. I wouldn't do it anyway. I would rather fail my mission and deal with the consequences than kill you, even if it was a mission. It's not, I just came here because of someone else and I'm not disappointed. Naruto gave Hiyori a cheeky smile and said, I told you already, I like you guys. After giving him a startled look, Hiyori turned away and muttered something about blonde idiots. Naruto could have made fun of her with that, but he chose to overlook it for the time being. So you seem plenty good enough in a fight to all of us. What are you going to do for 7 more days? Shinji said, crossing his legs as he sat in his chair. Naruto looked around at all of the vizards and put his hands together in a begging manner, saying, please? I promise that you won't even notice I'm here. I won't take up much space at all, I'm super clean, and I'll be your best friend. Naruto scratched his head and said, I don't know. Urahara never mentioned whether or not I could show up early, so I guess I'll stick around here if you'd let me. Rose asked him, why would you want to stay here? She was completely taken aback by someone who should have led a normal life and was, for want of a better term, more or less normal. He suspected that they did know, but Naruto's response was straightforward. Because you guys are awesome. I really don't want to have to find another hotel to stay at, I'd actually like to hang out for a while. I'm sick of being lonely, you know? I can pay you guys, I'm rich after all, and I can hang out with each and every one of you. Naruto formed 7-cage bunshin, at the same time. This was in spite of the fact that they appeared to prefer to keep to themselves most of the time. The vizards all gave him approving looks as though they were attempting to determine how sincere he was, but they were unable to detect any dishonesty in the large, silly smile he was giving them. After they stared at him for a while, he smiled and said, fine you cheap bastards, I'll buy all of the food and goodies that everyone wants for the entire stay. Welcome to the family Naruto, said Shinji, who came up behind Naruto and gave him a friendly shoulder pat. Naruto complained, yeah whatever, but his voice was not angry because he was still smiling. So what do you guys do for fun around here? He asked. With Love and Rose supporting her and holding up manga magazine and book issues, Lisa said, read. Kensai firmly said, train. He crossed his arms, seemingly daring Naruto to say something unfavorable. With a hint of sheepishness, Hachi said, oh, I don't know. Mashiro yelled, mess with Kensai, and the man gave him a growl of annoyance. Before Hiyori realized what he was calling her and jumped at him, Shinji and Hiyori each said, pick on Snaggletooth dumbass. This led to another altercation between the two. Okay, this is pretty bad, I'm going to find all of you something useful to do with your time as far as hobbies go, Naruto said, letting out a drop of perspiration as he watched the others go about their routine, which to him seemed like a lot of nothing. Is this all you guys do, along with training? Yes. His perspiration became more noticeable after he heard the unanimous response. Come on, he said, I've been alive for thousands of years and have come up with a ton of things to do with my time aside from that. Making fortunes and squandering them on pointless items, playing practical jokes on world leaders and monarchs, you guys must have something. Does getting drunk count? Mashiro asked, raising her hand as though she were in class. With a sigh, Naruto wiped his palm across his face and said, yes, with a defeated expression. Being intoxicated is a factor. Come on, let's get wasted. Before returning to the training room to continue fighting, let's get wasted and discuss all of the amazing things we've accomplished. That should buy some time. Soon after, there was a resounding chorus of agreement. Urahara shop. Departure day. A training facility similar to the one owned by the Vizards in their own warehouse was located inside Urahara's shop. Along with Ryu and Ichigo, the other people down there were a big, dark-skinned teen who was rather quiet, wore olive pants, a sleeveless gray shirt with a red stripe, and curly brown hair that covered one eye. A rather intelligent teenage girl with orange hair was also present, her bangs held back with a pair of hairpins. She was also dressed in gray trousers and a pink short-sleeved shirt. Urahara drew everyone's attention by pointing. "Okay, everyone pay attention please. It's about time to go," he said as he slammed the bottom of his cane into Ichigo's body, separating his soul from his body. "That's better." A series of stones formed into a square door behind him. "This is the gate to the Soul Society. Now please listen up, I will now teach you the way to go through this door without dying. But first, why are you guys messing with my body? Focus," he yelled in frustration as the others picked at his body, amazed at how he was separated. Who said they could freely prod him in that way? Right, because that body is going to be mine for the time being. You guys shouldn't touch it, everyone except Orihime-san, she can touch it. Kon, who had transformed into a teddy bear lion, said, gesturing to Ichigo's shoulder. As the others began to panic at the sight of a talking toy, Ichigo asked the plush toy, "Kon, why are you here?" "Why?" Angry Kon exclaimed, "I'm going with you of course. Do you really think you're leaving me behind? I will brave the difficulties of the Soul Society and—" But before he could finish, Chad, the big one, grabbed him and stared at him so intently that he had to scream in terror. "Hey," Urahara yelled and waved to get everyone's, "you can look back over here now. I'm trying to explain how the door works here." He sat down and resumed his explanation. "As you know, the Soul Society is the world of the souls, so in order to be there you actually have to be a soul. However, the only one that really has the freedom to move around is Ichigo due to him being a Shinigami. Even if the rest of you have your souls separated from your bodies, you would still be bound by your chain of fate. That is why a Reishi Henkenki spirit exchanger that will change the makeup of physical things in the living world into Reishi, the main component of souls." Ryu comprehended the statement, saying, "So all we have to do is go through this door and everything on that front will handle itself." "Correct," Urahara responded, "you can all go to the Soul Society as you currently are." "Right then, let's go," Ichigo said as he began to march toward the door. When Ichigo held his side in agony, Urahara interrupted him by slamming his cane into his side and chirping, "Not done yet. The process won't cause pain and you'll be able to go to the Soul Society, the real problem is time. You will all be given 4 minutes to get to the Soul Society, after which the door will close and you guys will be locked in the space between the living world and the Soul Society, the Dongai, forever." He said, "If you are caught by something called the Koryu, even a single foot, the chance of leaving in time becomes impossible. So what should we do?" Orihime asked, looking rather discouraged by the summary of their chances of even getting there. "Keep moving forward," with a serious expression, as serious as a cat can have. The others watched Yoruichi enter the room and say, "I thought I told you, your heart and soul are connected. What is important is how your heart thinks. Only those that can do so will be allowed to follow me." "What are you talking about?" Ichigo responded belligerently. "Everyone here today made the decision to go and are determined to go through with it." Yoruichi casually remarked, "You should know, kid. If you lose in there, you won't be coming back." Ichigo said resolutely, "I guess we won't be losing then." Before a tick mark appeared on the cat's head, signifying annoyance, Yoruichi said proudly, "Well said. Sorry I'm late everyone, I had to go retrieve someone who decided to sleep in." A rather haggard-sounding voice said, "Sorry I'm late everyone, I woke up with a black cat standing over me and decided that was bad luck, so I took a walk around Karakura town to let my luck settle." Ichigo and Ryu could swear they had heard the voice before, as footsteps indicated the person descending to their level. "And don't blame me for that, Yoruichi. On the last day we just drank all day long and fought. So then why did I find you naked this morning?" Yoruichi sneered and kept approaching the others, causing the individual to enter the room by themselves. The others gasped at that trivial detail they didn't need to hear. Naruto finally appeared, wearing a dark green combat vest, a pair of rather loose black pants, and a pair of unusual sandals that fit snugly and provided good support around his ankle and foot. He completed the ensemble with a red overcoat with black flames lining the bottom and an orange bandana around his neck that was sewn with the rusted metal leaf insignia. In a seemingly nonsensical retort to the cat, Naruto's eyes were rather bloodshot and red. "Why did I find you naked this morning? I didn't do anything to anyone there last night, did I? He asked, trying to repress some shameful memories. Asked Yoruichi, smiling at him. Naruto brushed it aside. Nope, none whatsoever. I would just like to remember what I did. It might make a cool scene to write about. I'm expecting tons of stuff to write about on this little mission of ours. You're that Naruto guy we met a while back. What are you doing here? Ichigo said, pointing to Naruto. Chad, who had been present on the day Naruto was thrown into the class, asked, wasn't he in our class for one day? Don't remind me, Naruto grumbled, I'll be damned if I'm ever going back to school. I'm an award-winning author that has sold countless books. Who needs school at that point? What are you doing here? Do you even know Rukia or something? Ichigo angrily yelled, don't change the subject. Naruto nodded, honestly number, and I have no reason to be doing this personally other than the fact that Yoruichi asked me to, and the fact that just because Rukia isn't a part of my plane of existence doesn't mean that I should just let her be killed for such a stupid reason. Naruto-san, I hope that your training was to your liking, Urahara said as she approached Naruto and put a hand on his shoulder. With a sly smile that made him shudder, Naruto said, yes, it was Urahara. I'd be happy to show you just how fruitful it was after I get back. We should sit down and have a little chat, but it can wait until I get back. With a few taps of his cane, a portal between worlds was opened between the stones that made up the gate. Ah hey, Urahara retreated from Naruto and slapped the gate with his fan. Okay, let's get going. The moment the gate is open, you guys rush in, Urahara said. Rolling his shoulders out to relax, Naruto approached it. Naruto stepped up first and pointed to Urahara and Yoruichi, saying, alright. You both owe me money or something of equal value. Remember that. I don't like playing guinea pig, but no guts, no glory. See you guys on the other side, he said, rushing in before anyone else could. Ichigo and the others nodded in agreement as Yoruichi asked, shall we? Before they all leapt through as well. Soul Society, 1st District, West Rukongai. It had been a very risky journey through the tunnel. Before actual danger could start, they had almost been destroyed by the thing Urahara had warned them about in another entity known as the Cleaner of the Tunnel. If it weren't for Orihime's prompt use of her abilities, they would have been over. Orihime looked at the others lying in a heap and asked brightly, is everyone alright? Everyone gave Ryu a strange look for carrying extra capes for his outfit. Ryu sat up and held his head, saying, I really didn't think we'd be that pathetic right off the bat. Totally unexpected. He felt the back of his costume and said, I didn't think I'd have to use my backup cape so soon. Great, Orihime exclaimed with joy, it appears that nobody was harmed. The cat headbutted Orihime in the eye, causing her to start crying. What's so good about that? Yoruichi yelled, prodding her with her hairpins. Were you even listening to me in there? It's a good thing that only the shield was touched by the Kotatsu. If it was the main body of your Shun Rika you would have been dead by now. Ichigo asked, why are you so angry? Inoue is the reason we're all alright. Yoruichi looked around and remarked, you don't seem to understand the situation. And to top it off, we lost Naruto. How in the world did he end up? As the smoke cleared, they could see a rather residential area, a town, if their guess was correct, and Ichigo took a close look at their surroundings before remarking, this is the Soul Society. Yes. Yoruichi started to clarify for his advantage, at the moment, we are on the periphery. When souls first arrive at Soul Society, they reside in the Rukongai Wandering Soul City. Our destination, the Seraiti Court of Pure Souls, is in the vicinity of it. The Soul Society's poorest region is also its most liberated and home to the greatest number of souls. Ichigo glanced over at the area, which was obviously different from how it was laid out. Hey, that must be the whatchamacallit where all of the Shinigami live, right? I'm entering. As he hurried over alone, he said. No, you moron. That's not the way to go. In an attempt to stop him, Yoruichi yelled, but it was too late. When Ichigo turned to face Yoruichi, a huge defensive wall almost crushed him, preventing him from moving forward. What the hell? He said in bewilderment since the smoke obscured his vision and he was unable to see any way around. A loud voice spoke up in front of Ichigo, it's been so long since someone tried going through the western gate without a pass. As the smoke cleared, Ichigo saw a man who was taller than him, with a small hat on his head and armor on his left shoulder and upper arm, but a uniform that exposed the left side of his chest. I finally have something to do, Ichigo said. Go ahead and attack from any angle you'd like, kid, he said, slamming a huge axe down in front of Ichigo. With wonder, Ryu turned to face the man and asked, "Who is this guy? His size makes it impossible for him to be human." Yoruichi informed the others, "His name is Jidanbu. He is a member of the Soul Society's elite. The guard at the Serites Western Gate. That means we're going to have to work together to defeat this monster and get past the gate," Ryu said, narrowing his eyes. "It would be easy if Naruto was here. I can't risk transforming yet for no reason." Yoruichi nodded. "Exactly, but it isn't going to be a simple task." Leaving that as a thought, Yoruichi continued, "He's been a guardian for 300 years and until now no one has ever passed him to make it inside. His axe will obliterate you in a single swing. He's this world's fabled Hercules." Yoruichi then yelled at Ichigo, "Ichigo, back off, and we'll figure something out." That plan of action was interrupted when Orihime and Chad rushed forward to help Ichigo. "Did you two not hear me?" As she rushed to help Ichigo, Orihime thought, "We're coming to help you, Kurosaki-kun." In order to prevent them from helping Ichigo, Jidanbu saw them approaching and slammed his axe into the ground, breaking it. He told the others, "This city has rules, you uncivilized people," adding, "Your behavior sickens me. When you get home, you have to wash your hands first. Secondly, food that has fallen to the ground should never be consumed. Third, no one else is allowed to participate in a duel, it is a one-on-one contest. Thus, the kid with the spiky hair is my opponent. Just wait until I'm finished," he said firmly. "Orihime, I'll make a hole in the wall," said Chad softly as he pointed to the wall. "Attack him if you have the chance." "Are you attempting to plan a surprise attack?" Surprising them with his keen hearing, Jidanbu asked testily. "Hey, Inoue." Chad. Over the wall, Ichigo's voice could be heard. "Kuroshi-kun, are you in pain?" Orihime asked anxiously. "Wait a minute, we're almost there." "Oh, I'm all right," Ichigo shouted back, "but I wanted to discuss that with you guys." "Okay, you and Chad just stay there. Do nothing." Ryu rushed up to the wall before Orihime could respond, asking, "What are you talking about? You've witnessed this man's strength. You can't do this alone, regardless of what you've learned in the last few days." "Oh, Ishida, there you are," Ichigo responded with a shout, as though he had been curious about the whereabouts of the others. "Stupid, I've been here from the start," Ryu yelled, growing impatient. Ichigo said quietly, "You're really noisy." Through the wall, Chad calmly said to Ichigo, "Can you win?" From his side of the wall, Ichigo rubbed his neck and glanced at Jidanbu. "Possibly." Ryu's shouting from the opposite side left a tick mark of irritation on Ichigo's head. "Kurosaki, what the devil is wrong with you? Are you aware of your current predicament?" Ichigo muttered, "So damn noisy." "Don't worry," he said. "What have I been doing for the past 10 days, do you even know? I was supposed to take all of that time to recover, but I only needed 5. What do you suppose I did in the 5 days I had left?" He waited for a response, but all he heard was silence. "Obviously, fighting. I got into a fight with Getaboshi during those 5 days and nights." Now that he understood, Ryu thought, "So he taught you battle skills?" "No, he didn't teach me a single thing," Ichigo said, interrupting him before he could finish his mistaken thought. "However, I now have a ton of power and unadulterated combat experience." He took the wrapped sword off of his back to reveal a large oversized cleaver that had no hilt or guard. It was just as tall as Ichigo himself with a black blade and silver edge. He looked at Jidanbu and smirked, "I'm ready. However, I don't recall asking you to wait for me." "Are you done? You seem to be as uncivilized as those others," Jidanbu remarked scornfully. "What a rude boy," he said, raising his axe in the air. "I wasted all that time waiting on you. You deserve gratitude," he shouted as he slammed his axe down, cracking the ground with the force it hit with, but he didn't feel the normal amount of give that he otherwise thought he would have. "Wait, how did you?" Ichigo said, "I wasn't ready yet," while holding his sword in one hand and his axe back. "You know, that wasn't exactly polite," he joked at his adversary. Amused by Ichigo, Jidanbu burst out laughing, saying, "You're not that horrible at all. Nobody has been able to block my axe in a long time. Finally, I can put all of my strength to use. Good luck, kiddo," he said, raising his axe once more. "You are one of only 3 people who have the ability to block my axe thus far, but there are 0 people who can block my second." He slammed it down on Ichigo, who blocked again. "Good. But die, I'm not done yet. Jiden 10 Hit Festival, or Jutsu Pon Jiden Damatsuri Da." Jidanbu started to swing at Ichigo, saying, 1, 2, trace, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 5, 6. It's almost done. 10, he said, raising his axe high above his head once more. With a sideways swing of his axe, he cut off the top of the wall he had erected to keep others out. However, Ichigo remained unharmed after the dust from the barrage of attacks subsided, his sword resting on the ground over his shoulder and obstructing his side. "How are you still standing?" Jidenbu questioned in disbelief. "Have you finished up yet?" Ichigo declared icily, staring at Jidenbu, "Because now it's my turn." As he prepared an attack, he said. "No, I have not yet finished," Jidenbu said, lifting his axe again and pulling out a second one. "My final attack. 10,000-year hit festival, or Banzai Jiden Damatsuri." Just as Jidenbu was about to slam his attacks down on him again, Ichigo said, "Sorry, but I'm going to have to destroy those axes." Ichigo responded with a swing of his own sword and fulfilled his threat, destroying both axes in a single swing and sending the big warrior down on his back as well. Before rolling back to his feet and blinking, Jidenbu gazed up at the sky and said, "That was dangerous. I was on the ground after a small distraction." Observing Ichigo's peculiar expression, he asked, "Did you believe you had won? A guy like you won't get me so easily? Let's use mine to wrap this up now." He held up an arm only to find a handle in his hand. "Axe. My axe? My axe is where?" When his axes were broken, he started to cry pathetically and lose his temper. Ichigo genuinely felt bad about what he had done, saying, "I know it's weird to say, but I'm sorry about that. I apologize. I suppose I could have just broken one and left you with the other." Jidanbu looked at Ichigo after ceasing to cry and said, "You're such a good guy. I'm an enemy. I lost the battle, but you still care about me." He began to blubber once more. So giving. The teenager Shinigami was greatly uncomfortable when he put a hand on Ichigo's shoulder. "And here I am crying like a baby because of a broken axe," he said. "I have never been so completely defeated in over 300 years, he said abruptly, throwing his arms in the air. "I give you permission to enter the Seraiti through the western gate." "Young warrior, what is your name?" Pointing to himself, Ichigo said, "Kurosaki Ichigo." Jidanbu turned to the gate and remarked, "Strawberry, what a lovely name." Ichigo had to be restrained by Chad from attacking the gate guardian, who had already been vanquished, saying, "I don't know why you want to go through this gate, Ichigo, but take care of yourself, everyone inside is powerful." Ichigo nodded and ceased to struggle, saying, "I know." Jidanbu grabbed the bottom of the gate and started to lift, saying, "Well, if you're sure you're prepared, then I will open the gate for you." Jidanbu shocked everyone by lifting the enormous gate high above his head so Ichigo and the others could pass through, but after he did so, he just froze in terror at what he saw. Ichigo peered around the giant and saw a man wearing a Shinigami outfit and an additional haori over his regular clothes. He had silver hair, closed eyes, and a smile on his face. "Who is this guy?" did he ask. "Jin Ichimaru," fearfully, Jidenbu exclaimed, "Captain of the 3rd Division." "Ah, this isn't allowed," Jin said to Jidenbu directly in a mildly reprimanding tone. Before anyone could take any action or realize what had happened, Jidenbu's arm was abruptly severed. "That's too bad, but you're a gatekeeper," Jin said. With no real malice in his voice, he said, "Your job is to guard the gate, not open it. No wonder you're one of the Soul Society elites." Jin said casually, "Even with a missing arm you can still hold the gate open." Jidenbu screamed in agony and lost his grip on the open gate as blood from the open wound poured down, but he was still able to keep it open with one hand on the gate and his shoulders holding it up. "But as a guardian, you continued to fail." As the scene developed, Yoruichi thought, "Ichimaru Taiko. Even though they are all very strong, his strength is beyond their imagination. If they fight here, the worst may occur." Yoruichi had not anticipated someone like this to appear so quickly. Jidenbu remarked wearily, "I opened it because I lost. The guardian opens the gate when he loses. It's just natural." "Did you create that foolish rule on your own?" "You clearly misunderstood," said Jin with a laugh. "A gate guardian may refuse to open the door even if he loses. If a guardian loses, the atmosphere around Jin became homicidal. He must be put to death." Ichigo suddenly struck to prevent Jidenbu from suffering any more injuries, slamming swords with the captain before separating. Ichigo's boldness left Yoruichi speechless, saying, "The kid just moved at him on his own." "You bastard, what do you think you're doing?" Ichigo was asking Jin. Rather than allowing Jin to respond, Yoruichi yelled at Ichigo, "What do you think you're doing? You just appear out of nowhere and attack us after we defeated Jidenbu handily? After receiving a nod from Orihime, Ichigo said to Jin, nearly furious, Inoue, I want you to look after Jidenbu's arm. If you want to fight so badly, then I'll be your opponent. I'll have to tear you to pieces in retaliation if you attack unarmed allies with such ease. Regarding Ichigo, Jin remarked, you're interesting, aren't you scared of me? No way. Ichigo responded angrily, definitely not. Stop playing tricks on Ichigo. Now let's go back. Yoruichi almost begged. It wasn't exactly on the agenda to fight a captain-level Shinigami in the first few hours of being here. Ichigo, orange hair, sword as long as his height, Jin thought to himself as he saw Ichigo's physical attributes. So you're Kurosaki Ichigo? Huh, so he does exist after all. Ichigo gave him a perplexed look and asked, do you know me? Before realizing Jin had turned and begun to leave. Oi, where are you going? He asked. Jin said, without looking at him, well, if that's the case then I definitely cannot let you pass. Ichigo tried to provoke him by asking, what the hell are you walking away for then? What are you planning on doing, throwing that knife at me? Oh, he had no idea. Poor bastard. Jin swiftly positioned himself in a sideways stance, tucked the blade under his left arm, and pointed his sword at Ichigo, saying, Ikoros, Shinso shoot to kill, God spear. Jin's sword swiftly extended at Ichigo with the intention of impaling him. It's not called a knife, this is my Zanpakuto. Ichigo defended himself by raising his own Zanpakuto, but he was pushed back into Jidenbu, which threw them both outside the gate. His sword retracted and the gate started to close. Just before it slammed shut, Jin said sweetly, bye-bye now, as he peered out from under the bottom and waved to everyone. Orihime yelled, Kurosaki-kun, as she, Chad, and Uryu dashed in the direction of the fallen Shinigami, who lay still on the ground. Everyone who had gathered around him to see if he was hurt was taken aback when Ichigo suddenly appeared and exclaimed, damn it, that hurt. Where is that bastard? He nearly killed me. As Uryu saw Ichigo bitching to himself about Jin, he thought, he still seems lively. He took that attack head on and he's still just fine, I'll say it again, scary guy. Uryu glanced at Ichigo's new sword and asked himself, is that how he did it? I believe he dubbed it his new Zanpakuto, Zanjetsu. After Yoruichi approached him, Ichigo got up and said, sorry, because of me the door closed again. Forget it. Yoruichi ignored his apology, saying, there's no use in worrying about it right now. Even though the door is closed again, the outcome might have been worse if you had gone through. That was Ichimaru Jin, so just be happy you weren't hurt. Oh, my clone was correct. At last, you all arrived. You took too long. As they all glanced up at a nearby building, they saw Naruto crouching there, his face expressionless, and waving disenchantedly, yo. Did any of you realize how slow you are? That Dongai place was where I was hauling ass. What became of you all? I assumed that everyone should be directly behind me. Naruto. Everyone exclaimed, having actually forgotten about him with everything that happened. Where have you been? When you went through, I thought you were killed, reprimanded Yoruichi. Without any humor or good humor on his face, Naruto shook his head and said, no, don't you give me that. Something exploded when I made it through, and I couldn't look back. How long have I been waiting for you guys to arrive? He then gestured to the fallen Jidenbu and the closed gate, saying, I tried that too when I first got here. I got tired of waiting and thought you all died. I didn't land here. I kicked the ass of another giant guy on the east side of this place. I've been playing around outside trying to come up with something because I can't even open that gate. You've been here how long? After leaping onto the roof he was sitting on, Yoruichi asked, perched on his shoulder and whispering to him so as not to wake anyone else. Silently, Naruto replied, I've been here waiting on all of you for quite a while. Time must have been displaced because of what transpired with Orihime's barrier and the Kodotsu, Yoruichi said. Keep it to yourself for the time being. Okay. We might be able to exploit this later. As the villagers emerged to engage with them all, Naruto nodded while they watched Orihime continue to work on Jidenbu's arm. So what have you been doing by yourself? He asked. I hope you stay out of trouble. Obviously, said Naruto with a smile. I am able to maintain discretion. His eyes became more glassy as he said, I just had to spend some time looking around for something. I'm an old hand at blending in because I had to exist as an immortal on Earth and move when I needed to. What were you looking for? Asked Yoruichi, blinking. I wanted to see the friends that first left me behind so long ago, Naruto said, sweeping his gaze over to Yoruichi's golden ones. Sigh, I couldn't find any of them. This place is so large that I couldn't go everywhere even with my cage bunshin. No matter where I looked, I was unable to even inquire about them. Even though I'm thrilled for them, I can't bring myself to show that they had lives of their own. However, after I noticed that there were memorials and elderly people here, I understood that they must have also passed away. You have been alive for a long time, haven't you? Yoruichi said, flinching for him and putting a tail around his neck. They must have been much older than 2,500 years old in this realm if that is the case. Probably, Naruto said, glancing at his hands and clenching them. I can't remember how long I've been here. It is undoubtedly much longer than the current calendar. Much longer. I had no idea that people also perished here. Apart from lifespan, what distinguishes this place from the world of the living? There isn't much of a difference, in my opinion. That's a very hard question to answer for one that has seen so much of the living world like you, Yoruichi said, unsure of how to react. Perhaps you can find out. Obviously they would have no ties to their past lives, but their souls would cycle back to Earth, Naruto said, looking at her hopefully, but if it makes you feel any better they reincarnated. She received no response from Naruto, who merely paused his conversation to gaze at the others conversing with the villagers below. Are you going to be okay? Yoruichi questioned him. Naruto gave the cat a worried glance and grinned broadly, saying, "Oh, I'll be alright. I can't be depressed right now, can I? Aren't I your ace? What use would I serve if everyone was depressed over this? So what if they're dead?" he asked, getting to his feet and gazing up at the sky. Keeping my loved ones safe and content has always been my top priority, and I succeeded in doing so. I will keep them alive because I will never forget them as long as I live. He pointed to his heart and said, every time I use a jutsu, and every time I wear the symbol of my old village, that means that they're still alive, even if it's just in here. With a smile, Yoruichi said, well, that's a very strong way to look at things. Not really, Naruto said, shaking his head. I've been without them for this long. It hurts occasionally, but there's nothing I can do. Yoruichi, all I can do is keep going. I'm not a god. It doesn't matter anymore because I will never be able to catch up to them. So, boss, what's the plan? I'm at a loss as to how we're getting in. I lose my power just by touching the gate's walls. Yoruichi curled up on his shoulder and closed her eyes, saying, I'll let them rest for the time being. I have a plan, but I need to get some information on someone first. Since you've been here long enough to understand the basics, would you mind joining me while the others adjust to the Soul Society? While we look, you can tell me about your friends. After laughing, Naruto began to move along the rooftops, saying, well, if you want to. Let's see, where should I start? Alright, I understand. I was put on this team with 2 other kids and a sensei when I first started being a ninja. I had a crush on Haruno Sakura, a pretty girl with pink hair, but our relationship never worked out. Just so you know, Yoruichi, you were much more attractive than she was as an adult. Much hotter. However, Uchiha Sasuke, the other child, was a complete jerk. Ichigo escorted Orihime inside a nearby house that provided them and the others with a place to spend the night after Orihime was relieved of his responsibility to heal Jidenbu. The elderly man who owned the house and appeared to be the sort of community leader was already inside, along with Chad and Uryu. Ichigo. Orihime. Chad acknowledged with a straightforward statement. Ichigo replied to his big Mexican-American friend, hey Chad. So the only ones left here that need to show up are Yoruichi and that Naruto character. Uryu sat along the room's far wall as they entered. He adjusted his glasses and said, I still don't know what to make of him. We don't know the first thing about him and yet here he is on this endeavor to save Rukia. Ichigo began to rub his head. I don't know what to make of the guy but he's definitely strong from what we saw the one time, and Yoruichi seems to trust him. Yeah, he's weird, but the rest of us aren't exactly normal either when you think about it. In an attempt to offer some support to the unit's least well-known member, Orihime stated, I think we should at least give him a chance. He's here which means he's willing to fight just as hard as any of us, and he seems nice enough. I think we should just get to know him. Uryu nodded and said, I need to keep an eye on this person, even though he wasn't entirely sure he should trust Naruto. We have no idea who he is associated with or what his powers are. I'm positive that he is not Shinigami and doesn't appear to work for Yoruichi or Urahara-san. Ah, everyone's already here. That's good, Yoruichi said as he entered the house. Naruto quickly followed, embracing himself tightly and grinning with satisfaction. Oh, I feel so awesome, he said. Ichigo asked Yoruichi, what's with him? As he observed Naruto patting down his own person with the joy of a child with a new toy. The other person sat in the center of the room and Yoruichi told her, Naruto didn't have any weapons on him. But somehow, and I have no clue how he did it, he found a blacksmith that was able to design some weapons for him which he just came back from picking up. The other people simply nodded, not knowing what weapons Naruto had, but Yoruichi did because she had seen them. How long was he here before we showed up? Was the question that was driving her crazy because she knew how many people he actually had on him, both in terms of quantity and variety. I wondered, Yoruichi said. Uryu asked, what kind of weapons do you use, Naruto-san? As he glanced at Naruto, who had contentedly seated himself beside Yoruichi in the center of the room. A small blade appeared from his sleeve into his hand as Naruto shot his arm out to the side and said, honestly, I don't need a weapon, I haven't for years. My entire body is my weapon. But then I realized that these Shinigami like to use swords and I don't feel like screwing around with that. Naruto turned to face Uryu. His hand-sized black dagger had a thin cloth wrapped around the handle. There was a little ring at the handle that read, this is a kunai. What can you do with a little thing like that? Ichigo asked, examining the weapon closely. It didn't appear to be much. Given that the Shinigami all ran around brandishing swords, what good could it really do? It appeared that a reasonable amount of pressure would cause it to crack. With a dark expression that unnerved the teenagers in the room, Naruto flipped the kunai in his hand to a stabbing grip and said, it's really an all-purpose weapon. My immediate go-to, my utility blade, the shinobi Swiss Army knife if you will, call it what you want. I can throw it, fight directly with it, or use it to kill you before you even know I'm there. Naruto began to laugh, oh man that was good, before his face once again becoming serious. But that's all that you have, Kurosaki-kun only has his one weapon too, but it's big, Orihime said, approaching him to get a glimpse of his weapon. This is just my most basic weapon, Naruto said, pulling the kunai back into his sleeve. I never said it was my only one. Naruto opened his jacket to reveal a large number of kanji seals written on the inside. He then patted Orihime on the head. Naruto was carrying a big, curved blade by the ring at the end of it after a brief summoning and a puff of smoke. Naruto resealed it back into his jacket and said, yep, I have a lot of stuff to use. As the others shifted to get a better look, he abruptly folded it open to reveal a wicked weapon that looked like a windmill blade. This is another favorite. The Fuma Shuriken. When Yoruichi saw Naruto showcasing his goods to the unfortunate would-be rescuers, she exclaimed, I think that's enough, Naruto. You're making the kids nervous. Now everyone come here, I want to discuss our plan for tonight and tomorrow. After saluting the black cat, Naruto sank back to the ground and said, so tell them the plan. Another gate won't work because I already tried the one on the east side. Your guardian opened the door after you won. I beat up mine so bad that it wasn't even an option. Ichigo turned away with a gloomy aura surrounding him as Yoruichi shook her feline head, saying, no number more gate work. Breaking in like that wasn't a good idea in the first place. So what about these other gates that Naruto was talking about? Chad asked. Which makes me question once more how long he's been here. Yoruichi shook her head and said, no, they're at least 10 days away. If Orihime began all the way on the east side and ended up here when we got there, then his time must have been severely disrupted by Orihime's barrier striking the tunnel guardian. The others noticed what she was thinking and turned to watch Naruto as he fiddled with the device in his jacket sleeve that revealed a secret kunai in his hand. What? Asked Naruto as he saw them staring at him. For the group, Orihime inquired, how long have you been here? He didn't say that last part out loud, but he shrugged and said, not that long, in relativity of time towards an immortal that is. But that's not important, he said loudly, attempting to shift the conversation. Yoruichi, you were talking? He asked. Right. Yoruichi continued exactly where she had left off, saying, if we tried that we would just be wasting a lot of time that we don't have. But don't worry. If we can't get in using a gate, we'll just have to get in without using a gate. Before Naruto grinned after Yoruichi explained her plan to him, everyone else questioned in bewilderment, what? As the man pondered, the cat turned to the older man in the room and said, I need to find someone. Elder Dono, do you know where I can find Shiba Kuakaku? The place used to be around here in the past, but when I went with Naruto earlier I couldn't find it. No, can it be that you plan to use that way to get into the Seirei? He asked, realizing at last who she was referring to. What? What way are you guys talking about? Ichigo questioned, but then he heard trotting footsteps outside. What is that sound? Ichigo asked, before a man flew through the front door and knocked it down. Who the hell is that? Did this guy break in? Ichigo asked. Uryu said, looking clumsily at the door, it's a wild pig. A wild pig just ran into here. The tall, muscular man got up and said, "Man, I got thrown off my boar again." He then greeted the elder, saying, "Yo. Long time no see, old man." He had on goggles, a bandana, a scarf, and a vest. "Nice goggles, random guy," Naruto said, observing the newcomer and giving him a thumbs up. The stranger returned the favor, grinning at Naruto. The elder shouted, "Ganju, what are you doing here? Go back home," in alarm. Ganju played it off as innocuous. "It's just that I haven't seen you in a while, so I came by. But you're kicking me out already? You're scaring the guests too, don't be so impolite." "That's because of you," retorted the elder. Ganju glanced at everyone in the room before focusing on Ichigo, who was giving him a suspicious look. What's wrong? What are you staring at?" Ganju asked. "I asked you a question. What's a punk-ass Shinigami like you doing in a place like this?" Ganju asked, pulling on Ichigo's face after removing his goggles to properly survey what he was seeing. "What's a punk-ass Shinigami doing here?" he asked, getting in Ichigo's face and beginning to pat his cheek spitefully. "Why the hell did you punch me, dandelion head? Are you trying to pick a fight?" Ganju cried as he stood back up after Ichigo, of course, had had enough and decked him in the face, sending him flying across the room. "Who the hell do you think you are suddenly barging in here like that?" Ichigo, whose patience had long since worn thin, yelled back at Ganju, "That's my line, you pig-riding barbarian." "Oh no, they're going to fight. What should I do? I have to stop them," exclaimed Orihime, standing off to the side with a mini freakout. "Ah, let him fight, Orihime," Naruto replied from afar. "It's the fastest way that men get over being angry. That, and I haven't seen anyone else have a good fight in forever." "It's just as I thought," the elder sighed in desperation. Unable to understand Ganju's issue, Uryu asked the elderly man, "What do you mean, just as you thought? Who is this guy supposed to be, Elder Dono?" With a smirk on his face, Ganju sneered, "You don't know who I am? You sure are an ignorant Shinigami." He pointed his thumbs at himself and said, "My name is Ganju. Self-declared, Crimson Bullet of West Rukongai, self-declared #1, man that is the boss of West Rukongai for 14 years, and also, the #1 Shinigami hater in West Rukongai," before slugged Ichigo outside into the streets. The four men who were blocking the door's path said, "Don't interfere when our boss is teaching someone a lesson. If you really want to get involved, you have to go through us first." Uryu and Orihime then moved to support Ichigo. Gritting his teeth, Uryu said, "So you're just underlings of that Ganju guy." Another thing caught Orihime's attention. "They're all riding on boars. You said we had to fight you to get past. What about him?" Chad said, approaching the door. He gestured to Naruto, who was sitting on the ground behind them, gleefully observing Ichigo and Ganju getting into a fight. "As long as I live, I'm not letting a Shinigami reside in this district." Ganju yelled at a downed Ichigo, "You'd better leave this place." Ichigo's response was a straw sandal to the face in the form of a kick that sent him flying backwards. "Holy shit!" exclaimed Naruto, "In the face! In the face!" Following Ichigo's attack, Ganju's subordinates cried out their leader's name in concern. "You didn't even listen to me. You just go around hitting people. Even if you truly wanted to fight me, you're not good enough to be my opponent," Ichigo said, standing up straight. With a wise nod from his position on the street, Naruto said, "That's the exact reason why I don't feel like fighting you, Ichigo." "Well said." With a quivering eyebrow, Ichigo turned to face Naruto and said, "I don't really need you interjecting here. That's twice now. Twice that you've punched my handsome face," Ganju said, standing back up and holding his nose where Ichigo had struck him. Ichigo immediately responded to him, "I kicked you the second time, idiot." Naruto laughed. Maybe he implied it as you punching his face in with your foot? When Ichigo refused to back down, Yoruichi walked outside and exclaimed, "That's enough, Ichigo. Don't waste your energy on a meaningless fight." She stopped beside Naruto and said, "Honestly, getting angry over a tiny situation like this, stupid kid." After completing his sentence, Naruto gave her a naive glance and said, "Well, you could always transform and stop him yourself." His expression was one of stupidity. Yoruichi sighed. "I'm fast enough that the only person here that might be able to see me would be you. Maybe you, so you wouldn't get anything out of it. If you aren't going to leave Shinigami, then it seems that you and I are simply destined to fight," Ganju said, glaring at Ichigo while pulling a small, cleaver-like weapon from his back. The elder tried to reason, "He is not a bad Shinigami. Ganju, stop it. You should know very well that a Shinigami is a Shinigami. There are no good ones or bad ones," he yelled back at the elderly man, "Shut up," and began to run toward Ichigo, saying, "Here I come, Shinigami." Uryu said, "Damn, Kurosaki didn't bring his Zanpakuto," in anticipation of a potentially dangerous scenario. "Should I throw him a kunai and see if he sinks or swims with it?" Naruto asked Yoruichi as he watched Ganju begin to charge, and Yoruichi's face failed in cat form beside him. Then Chad rushed out of the house and threw his wrapped zanjetsu to Ichigo, who caught it and unfurled it right away. "Thanks, Chad," Ichigo said. Before Yoruichi slashed him across the face with her claws, Naruto exclaimed, "Boo Chad. Outside interference is strictly forbidden." "Fuck. Why does that hurt so much?" "By blowing on her claws," Yoruichi said, "that's what you get for being a dumbass. Don't think that with a larger blade you'll be able to beat me." Ganju stomped on the ground and made a circular motion with his front leg before making a gesture with his free arm. "Sink down." The ground softened to the point where Ichigo's sword became trapped in it, forcing Ichigo to block a horizontal slash by stabbing his sword into the ground to cover the side of his body. With his sword suddenly sinking into the ground, Ichigo wondered, "What's going on? It's like quicksand." Ganju jumped and kicked him in the side of the head, sending him rolling down the street. "What was that strange trick?" Ichigo asked himself. "I don't need zanjetsu to beat you. I was stronger than one of the toughest girls in Japan before middle school in karate." Ganju stepped in front of Ichigo, who had returned to his knees, and kicked him in the chest. However, Ichigo caught his foot and punched him in the face, sending him to the ground. Ichigo stopped Ganju's attempt at an overhead chop by disarming him by catching his arm at the wrist and then punching him in the face once more. Ichigo shook out his hand as Ganju staggered back, saying, "That didn't knock him out. I just hit him as hard as I could, tough guy." As Ichigo's facial scratches disappeared, Naruto laughed at his incredulity and said, "It's probably your hands. You've got them baby hands." "Punk," Ganju said, wiping the blood from his face. He turned around to see a clock on his back that read 9 p.m. "It's not good, boss. It's already 9 o'clock. Yelled one of Ganju's subordinates. "No, boss, bad news. Come here, Bonnie-chan." Ganju uttered a frightened, "Shit, 9 o'clock," before whistling. "Bonnie-chan? Wait, you're leaving? Don't run away," Ichigo thought as Ganju's big boar leapt over his head and collided with him before the man climbed on top of the animal. As Ganju started to ride away with his friends, he yelled, "Come on, you idiots. Why didn't you warn me sooner? I never said I was running away, Dandelion Head. I just have somewhere to be, so wait here until I come back." Ichigo, unable to find the right words to describe his anger, looked at Ganju with a furious expression. Uryu approached Ganju and placed a hand on his shoulder as he started to fade away, saying, "Let it go, Kurosaki. I'm speechless too." The following day, the group of rescuers were walking along the outskirts of the village towards a destination that Yoruichi was not yet disclosing. "Are really supposed to be going out here? We're really far away from the town," Ichigo muttered, massaging the horizontal wound across his face. Since that morning, Uryu had put up with Ichigo's whining, saying, "Shut up, damn. According to the map the elder gave us, it's around here someplace. If you don't like it then you take the lead." Orihime decided to add her own idea, but since that Kuakaku guy is the only one that knows how to enter Seraite without going through the main door, why not live in the village with the others and be praised for it? Uryu acknowledged, "That's a good point." "No it isn't." Naruto responded with an obvious lack of interest. "Why would you live right next to the place that you know how to get into illegally? Especially when that place is teeming with soldiers that can come and find you while you're being praised for that kind of thing. The Seraiti has a big-ass gate surrounding it and 4 gigantic guards that kill anyone that gets close. Clearly tourism isn't very high on their list of priorities." "That's not it either, Naruto." Yoruichi responded dryly, "With Kuakaku's personality he would probably like this kind of place better than in the village. Fewer people and it's quieter out here." Naruto walked with a sad cloud over his head because he had been caught overanalyzing something, saying, "It's alright though. Even though the address keeps on changing, the houses themselves always have the same theme. I can tell with one look." The cat alerted, "Ah, I can see it, it's over there." The house caught Uryu and Ichigo's attention, and they exclaimed, This is. Naruto exclaimed, "This is awesome," as he surveyed the house, which had a charming appearance, a strange giant tube thing in the backyard, and 2 enormous stone arms holding up a banner that identified the residence. "See? You can tell in one glance, right?" asked Yoruichi, who appeared to be quite pleased with the house's appearance. "I've got to meet the person that set all of this up and shake their hand. This is fantastic." Naruto exclaimed with a passionate nod. and then he ran to the door before a voice interrupted him. Hold on. Naruto and the others were confronted by two large, similar-looking men who leapt from the roof's backside. A bunch of weird-looking people, and one of them is a Shinigami. We can't let suspicious people like you lurk about, they said. The other man yelled, get out, or you will die here. Yoruichi hopped on Naruto's shoulder, preventing him from moving to do anything. Naruto sighed and began to crack his knuckles, asking, does anyone mind if I take this one? All of this walking has left me really bored. In realization, one of the big men said, Yoruichi dono? Even as just a cat apparently you've got stroke in the Soul Society huh? Asked Naruto, glancing strangely at the cat perched on his shoulder. Please pardon us. We didn't think Yoruichi dono would travel with such rabble, the two burly men said as they led them inside and down a grand staircase to a lower level. As she led the other guests down the stairs, Yoruichi exclaimed, it's okay. I didn't notice you guys at first either, so it's my fault too. One of the big men approached a sliding door and said, please wait here for a moment. Hello Yoruichi. Long time no see. Is it Koganehiko? A voice called loudly from behind the door. It seems we have a rare guest, hurry and open the door. Don't be slow. The man opened the door fearfully to reveal a woman sitting on a mat surrounded by pillows, looking rather young, with long, messy black hair that was partially covered in bandages, wearing a provocative red robe that exposed much of her cleavage, a white skirt, and a provocative red robe that showed off her right arm, which was missing, and a prosthetic in its place. To the surprise of the teenagers, Kuakaku is a woman? Naruto said, and one hell of one from the looks of things. His gaze strayed from her face to her chest because he didn't want to be seen glaring at the person he was visiting. Who are these kids? Kuakaku asked Yoruichi after giving them a strange look. Headbutting him in the face, Yoruichi interrupted Naruto, saying, damn it, I haven't gotten to do the introduction in 100 years. I've got a new setup and self-titles and everything. Naruto smiled and said, I thought no one would ever ask me that question. He moved ahead of everyone else. But I am no mere child like these others, my dear, I'm a man, and not just any man, I am. Disregarding him, Yoruichi approached Kuakaku and said, actually, Kuakaku, I came today to ask you a favor. Yoruichi nodded, it's been a long time since we've had this kind of conversation. Kuakaku rolled her eyes and said, I thought so. It's always the same thing every time you come see me. Is it really complicated? She then grinned and said, so then go ahead and tell me. I love complicated stuff. After a brief justification, ignoring Ichigo and company's disbelieving looks, Kuakaku continued, I see, while smoking a pipe. Okay, I accept the job. Since Urahara is involved, I can't really refuse, but even though I trust you, it doesn't mean I trust these kids. Okay. I can pay you. Money is absolutely no object at the moment, Naruto said, nodding in comprehension. When Naruto unlocked a scroll full of bills, Yoruichi sighed and said, Naruto, money from the world of the living is completely useless here. She asked him, almost in a screech, where did you get all of that? How long has he been here? She asked. Stacking bills, Naruto said, that is not important right now. I don't need any money, I already decided to do this as a favor to Yoruichi, but I would like to send one of my men with you just to make sure that you can all be trusted. Any objections? Kuakaku said as she stood up and waved Naruto away. To which Yoruichi answered, of course not. Kuakaku walked over to another ornate sliding door in the room and said, he's my little brother. He's kind of a punk, but he's alright. Oi, you ready? She shouted to the person behind the door. The door slid open to reveal the man who had attacked Ichigo the previous evening. Hello everyone. My name is Shiba Ganju. Nice to meet you. The voice barked back. Just give me a second. Okay Oni-sama, I've got it. Ah, it's you, Ichigo and Ganju exclaimed as they recognized one another. You know each other? Asked Kuakaku, bewildered. With a smile on his face, Naruto came to her side and said, you want to see something hilarious? Watch this. He held up two pebbles and accurately flicked them at Ichigo's and Ganju's heads. That was all the impetus they needed to carry on with their small argument from the previous evening. After 10 minutes, the novelty of witnessing Ichigo and Ganju humiliate one another soon wore off. By yawning, Naruto said, this isn't as funny as it was last night. Kuakaku yelled, that's enough, and used some of her own physical force to break up Ganju and Ichigo's altercation. What the hell is the matter with you two? You've been fighting since the second you saw each other. As he began to stand up, Ichigo muttered, ow, jumping a guy out of nowhere, like brother like sister. Ganju said, accusingly, but Oni-sama he was the one that, while pointing at Ichigo. "Hey punk, this is my home, if you don't like the way I run things then get the hell out," Kuwakaku said after kicking him in the face to silence him. "You'd talk back to me?" she asked, turning to Ichigo and grabbing him by the head. The scene had Naruto in stitches, asking, "Why is it that every woman I meet is probably capable of kicking my ass? It's like a theme that never dies." "Your sister is scary," Ichigo said, quickly bowing to Kuwakaku's wishes and turning to Ganju as she began to leave. After a few hours, Kuwakaku would fire them from the tube in the backyard, which was a fireworks launcher, to gain entry to the Seirei, which was surrounded by a barrier built by the gate to keep out attacks from above and below. They all needed to be able to concentrate their Riryoku and create a protective cannonball that would be fired in order to have even a remote chance of surviving such an event. It was more difficult than it seemed because if anyone tried to make the ball, they would be destroyed, so they had to practice and get it right. Uryu, Shad, Orihime, and Naruto all mastered the technique in a reasonable amount of time because, even though he had a lot of chakra, it was cut in half once you used up his Riryoku reserves, which made it much simpler for him to manage. After Ganju shared his shortcut for energy control, Ichigo had a general understanding of it, however, because it was so difficult for him to maintain energy control, he had to improve his method. Ichigo gripped a strange orb and exclaimed, "I'm tired of practicing this Uzumaki. I've gotten the technique down, it will be fine. I need to get ready to head into the Seirei." He gripped his stomach and grumbled, "Ow, my stomach hurts." Naruto then struck him over the back of his legs with a kendo stick. "There is no fear in this dojo," Ichigo exclaimed. "Ouch is not an acceptable ki-ya at this dojo." Before Naruto struck him once more. He then began to pace the room, saying, "You have just as much power in comparison to me as a kid. The downside to that is that much like me as a kid you absolutely suck at controlling it and that's very bad in this case." "You bastard, that doesn't explain why I'm still working here," Ichigo yelled at him and then recoiled when Naruto threatened to swing the kendo stick once more. Naruto went on to explain, "You see the lives of me and everyone around me never really banked on my shoddy control so I had time to neglect it and work on it over time of which now I have adequate control. You do not have nearly enough time to get good control so we're going to patch you up like a leaky ship to get you to the next dock by making you as tired as fucking possible so that you have less overall energy to control." When Naruto finished his tirade, Uryu stood in the room's doorway and gave him a strange look. This gave him the opportunity to say, Yoruichi is waiting at the surface on you two to get up there." Pulling Ichigo up there by his collar, Naruto said, "This is going to have to do for now I guess. Come on kid, let's roll." "Where is Ganju, please?" Ichigo asked, observing that everyone but himself was gathered around the fireworks launcher. "Hold on." Before rounding a corner of the house, Ganju shouted, "The heroes always arrive a little bit later." He gave a thumbs up. "You completely butchered that quote and that gesture from the book I just released up here," said Naruto, scowling as Kuwakaku shook her head. Kaihosha Icha Icha Liberator. Before the big, climactic fight scene on the bridge, the powerful hero says that exact quote as he rushes in to help his allies just before their unavoidable deaths. Page 211, Chapter 16. It should read, "The hero always arrives at the very last second." Then he saw Ganju and Kuwakaku both staring at him in amazement. "You penned that?" Both of them exclaimed in shock and astonishment. "You're that Naruto? Naruto Uzumaki?" Naruto smiled and said, "Yes. I decided to re-release my first volume of Icha Icha works up here because I was broke, and it quickly became popular. The greatest writer, living or dead, is me. Literally. How long did you stay here before we arrived?" Finally fed up with ignorance, Yoruichi yelled at Naruto, but he ignored her as he signed copies of his book, which Kuwakaku and Ganju somehow produced right away. "What are you dressed up looking ready to fight for?" Ichigo asked, grabbing everyone's attention. "You are only here to say goodbye, aren't you?" Grabbing Ichigo's collar, Ganju got in his face and said, "My brother was killed by a Shinigami in cold blood." As soon as Ganju began talking, Kuwakaku's excitement at meeting Naruto disappeared. "Ganju, stop talking, don't. Listen. Sis, don't interrupt me." In fact, Ganju's tone startled her into quiet, enabling him to go on. "My brother was a genius. His energy level was comparable to that of a lieutenant in the 13th Division, and he passed the Shinigami entrance exam on his first attempt. In just 2 years, he completed the 6-year academy curriculum, and 5 years later, he was promoted to lieutenant. But then his Shinigami partner betrayed him and killed him. I was young and didn't know everything about it, But I will always remember two things, he continued, and Ichigo remained silent. The icy eyes of the Shinigami who revived my brother's body, and the beaming expression on my brother's face when he thanked the Shinigami. My brother never once expressed hatred toward the Shinigami, and I never understood why. He jerked Ichigo's collar, saying, "You aren't like other Shinigami. I want to know why he never hated them, why he believed in them even in death. I'll know why if I accompany you, so I'll be helping out on this one and getting a first-hand look at what Shinigami are like." Since no one had anything to say to Ganju, Kuwakaku looked at her brother in shock and said, "Well, I guess you've made up your mind. You brat, just don't flee in the middle of a fight. Put your all into this if you're serious about it." Ganju gave a resolute nod, but Ichigo released his hold and seized his collar, saying, "Watch my back." Ganju grinned and said, "Scum." "All right," he said, releasing Ichigo's hold and making his way over to the launcher. With the orb in his hand, Ichigo gazed down at Yoruichi and said, "We all trained really hard to learn how to do this, as if our lives depended on it." "No, I didn't. Naruto provided useful assistance." Uryu added, "That was just you." Still talking to Yoruichi, a little annoyed by the others, Ichigo said, "Anyway, Yoruichi, can you do it?" When Ichigo finished forming a perfect cannonball with ease, Yoruichi said, "You don't have to worry about that, just put it on the ground." Yoruichi leapt on it and said, "This is just as natural as breathing for me." Yoruichi let the barrier fall and saw Ichigo pouting glumly. "Are you disappointed? Do you feel even more inferior? I could train all night long without giving it much thought, while you had to." Naruto picked up the orb and threw it in his hand, saying, "Stop making fun of the child, Yoruichi. Let's start now before the day is over. Since it's more difficult to see me in the dark, I would like to get a sense of where I'm." "All right, everyone inside," Kuwakaku said as he opened a path into the launcher. Everyone filed in, but Kuwakaku stopped Naruto, saying, "Not you. It's time to start." "Yes?" Naruto asked, blinking at her bewildered. "Am I able to assist you?" When Kuwakaku held out her hand expectantly, she said, "You know I can't do that, so please say yes and make it enjoyable." Her expression remained unchanged as she said, "It's not even supposed to be out this year. It would be favoritism. In order to create demand, I'm supposed to hold off on releasing more until maybe next year. Do you have no understanding of economics? Well, if you don't want to, I guess you can find another way into the Seirei," Kuwakaku said with a smile. After giving her a sardonic glance and taking a book out of his jacket, Naruto said, "This is a gift for everyone I owe favors to. It's yours. Since this was a freebie for you, I don't want to hear anything more when I publish more books." After joyfully snatching it from him, Kuwakaku stepped aside and said, "Come and see me when you're done in there if you survive, and we'll see if I can't change that tune." Then, she became more serious and said, "Take care of my kid brother." "Who do you think you're talking to here?" Naruto saluted her as he entered. "The promise of a lifetime is that everyone will return." He began to pose ostentatiously, saying, "Because I am the—" Kuwakaku cut him off by closing the launcher. "Oh come on, at least once, I must get to say it. Once we get inside, don't wander off by yourselves," Yoruichi warned them after everyone had gathered around the orb. "Run if you come across a captain-class foe. Our goal is to seize Rukia, so we won't take any chances." "I'm not running if I get caught," Naruto said, shaking his head. "I'm going to be playing decoy because I want to keep everyone on your target. They will be running around like roaches in there," he replied with glee, "and in the midst of something like this, nothing makes it easier for a small group of people to move about inside of a stronghold than misdirection, complete mayhem, and anarchy, so that's what I'll be doing. Listen Naruto, once we get there Yoruichi said sarcastically as she heard Kuwakaku start her incantation outside. "Damn it, it's begun, concentrate your efforts." Seirei no Zaraki Taiko was discovered, a Shinigami said. "Fuck it." A rather large man with scars all along his body, an eye patch on his face, and his hair tied up in a unique spiky style with bells at the ends shouted. A little girl with pink hair on his back, "We searched all damn night and nothing." When a loud sound reverberated, he turned to face the sky and said, "Wait. What's that?" It then broke apart in the sky. "Damn. It broke apart. Which is the strongest now?" It struck the barrier and came to a halt. "Aiden Taiko," a Shinigami yelled in surprise. "It struck the barrier and didn't disappear," said a startled man with brown hair and glasses. The cannonball in the sky then exploded into 4 different directions, indicating that there is an exceptionally high concentration of power, and so it begins. With Naruto, it touched down here. Everything, including the smoke, is visible. A Shinigami amid a group of them shouted as they made their way towards where Naruto crash landed. They ran in abruptly, each with a Zanpakuto all drawn. Find the Ryoka. He's not present. Wait. I felt something run past me in the cloud of smoke. The smoke cleared, revealing only the assembled group of Shinigami. It went that way. A blond Shinigami with spiked hair pointed out. With a shout, he grabbed his Zanpakuto in its sheath and started to run. In that manner, go get him. Keep the intruder from getting away. As he let himself fall behind until they were out of sight, the blond Shinigami was swiftly overtaken by everyone else. Suckers, Kai. He grinned to himself after they had left. In a puff of smoke, the Shinigami was gone. In his place was Naruto, and the Zanpakuto that was around his waist transformed into Yoruichi gripping tightly to the waist of his clothing. And that's how you do that. And you all said, when we land, get ready to fight. Yoruichi-chan, work smarter, not harder. Well, it seems like going alone wouldn't have been a better strategy after all, Yoruichi said, releasing herself from Naruto's hip and falling to the ground. So, how are you going to distract people? Naruto smiled at her, saying, I'm confident that Ichigo and the others will only go to wherever Rukia is and engage in a brief altercation, but nothing more. I have to stay as far away from that place as I can and pique curiosity elsewhere. In order for me to know where not to go, where would Rukia be? The Seireiti's center. We should get out of the open, Yoruichi said, referring to her being in the Senzaikyu Palace of Remorseful Sin, where prisoners are held pending execution. In response, Naruto said, well, then I need to find a place to begin running amok. Any ideas? With a broad smile, Yoruichi said, yes, I do. To what extent are you willing to risk getting into trouble? You have no idea who you're dealing with, do you? Naruto smiled back at her. Mischief and debauchery in the world of the living are patronized by me. Just give me some instructions and point me in the right direction. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu Multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu is actually the case. In a cloud of smoke, 50 Naruto doppelgangers materialized, saying, go find out where stuff is, go do stuff to it, and don't get caught. And when you learn the location of the 2nd Division barracks, avoid it. Before the clones could go off and do their own thing. Yoruichi yelled, I want to hit that place on my own. Are you certain you should have given them such ambiguous instructions? The clones asked, saluting Yoruichi and the original Naruto before scattering off in different directions. Who cares? Said Naruto, shrugging and leaping up onto a nearby high wall. Even if they are caught, they can simply dispel it and move on. The less specific the instructions are, the more disorganized the entire situation will be. While the others fight for their lives, let's go enjoy ourselves. Yoruichi-chan, take the lead. As he disappeared in a shunshin, Yoruichi held on and gestured in the direction she wanted him to go. After a couple of hours, as Naruto walked silently through the exterior grounds of a specific barracks, Yoruichi was on his shoulder. Are you sure you're up for this? I can enter and complete this on my own. I used to be able to manage this place by myself. After glancing at the cat, Naruto turned back to his hiding spot and asked, do you really want to change into a different person just to play tricks and go around nude when I could do it for you? And this division is directly connected to the Onmitsukido stealth force, with specially tailored stealth skills that the others don't possess in order to complete specialized missions, Yoruichi snorted angrily. I have clothes. Assassinations, guard duty for prominent inmates, and similar incidents. Are you implying that they are essentially the Seireiti's ninja force? Naruto made a wild guess. Seeing a gleam in Naruto's eyes that he was unable to conceal, Yoruichi nodded and said, yes, you could say that for more than a good number of them. What do you plan on doing? I can't recall the last time I had to face off against a ninja of any kind, Naruto said quietly, laughing. I'm in this for sure, Yoruichi-chan, and you can't talk me out of it now. Yoruichi made the decision to doubt his sanity after feeling the urge to scratch Naruto's face for being foolish once more. What do you think you can do against an entire squadron of them? Naruto's laughter never subsided. I painted the entire mountainside monument of the world's most powerful ninja village in broad daylight while wearing bright orange, and I got away with it when I was 12. And back then, I wouldn't even think of my former self as stepping on my present self's toes. After a moment of silent staring, Yoruichi asked, do you think you could do something like that again? After giving her a back scratch and a smile, Naruto said, oh, I'm probably all over that as we speak. Outside the headquarters of the 1st Division, with Naruto's clones. One of Naruto's Kage Bunshin, standing on a tall wall with a view of the area, shed a single tear as he gazed up at a spotlessly white building with only the division's emblem on one wall. It's so beautiful, it's absolutely perfect. The clones next to him all opened buckets of paint and brushes and said, it's so perfect, and we are going to absolutely fuck this place up. So, how are we going to deal with this Fukutaichu? One of the other clones approached the leader clone. We can choose to go the long and difficult route. Creative, but we could be cut off in the middle. However, there is also the quick route. Although it might not be as cool as the other way, there is a very good chance of collateral damage, which would be hilarious and undoubtedly annoy people. Well, we're supposed to be doing this quickly, so do it the fast way, the clone said, stroking its chin. It ought to be fine. Thus, proceed to steal into position. The clones gave him a salute and gathered their gear before circling the area. 9th Division Headquarters, Seiretii Communication Magazine Editing Department. Oh man, a clone, grinning, sat at a desk and typed quickly, who the hell runs this place? With all the defenses this place had, we might as well have entered through the front door. Well, they think that there are only a few of us, said another clone, standing off to the side and taking pictures of another clone standing in front of a white screen. They are unaware that if the boss so desired, he could assemble an army of us. Continue creating our profile page now. With a special edition of their magazine, we are introducing ourselves to the entire Seiretii. A clone reading over another's work stated, they're all out chasing Ichigo and the others. They have a general idea of where they are, so they're going to try and cut them off and trap them with numbers. And it's far away from here. He handed the work back to another clone and said, go over it and add more flashy adjectives and titles to describe us. Hopefully, when we're done here, we can divert some of the heat off of them, in a full, glossy, 42-page spread chronicling the greatness of Uzumaki Naruto. What do we call the magazine issue? Fukutaichu. Special issue. The introduction of Uzumaki Naruto, smiled the leader clone. Cometh the everlasting sage. Manner of the Kuchiki family, a Naruto clone was sitting by a koi pond in the middle of a calm garden, smiling and with his eyes closed. He sighed deeply and said, I like this garden, it's peaceful. Another clone approached the leader clone and said, yes? Fukutaichu, our brothers located the Byakuya guy's room and are now in the laundry room with the orange dye. Orders? The clone inquired. With a thumbs up, the leader clone extended his hand and said, do it. The noble scent is just drifting out of this place. With Yoruichi and Naruto at the headquarters of the 2nd Division. With Yoruichi on his shoulder and his shoes off, Naruto crept into an office and quietly closed the door. This place has heated floors and automatic doors. Who the hell footed the bill? I kind of don't want to mess this place up, Naruto said in a surprised whisper to Yoruichi. After jumping off Naruto's shoulder, Yoruichi began to move about the office, asking, did you also notice that hot spring? As she hopped into a chair at a desk, she said, my little soy fawn has done so well since I left. This place sure has been renovated since I was here. Soy fawn? Naruto said as he walked through the room over to Yoruichi, who's that? Yoruichi gave Naruto a sly smile and said, well, she's my former bodyguard, protege, etc. Since I trained her, she should be nearly as quick as me and serves as the squad's captain. So she's also quicker than me. Well, at least I'm still the fastest man alive. You Shinigami are forcing me to step it up, Yoruichi said, nodding, making Naruto appear dejected. Oh well, he said, making his way to the desk, I used to think I was bulletproof. I have endless time to get faster because I'm still immortal. What are we doing here, then? How do we trick her? I don't want to prank her, Yoruichi said, his eyes taking on a sad hue. When I left the Soul Society a century ago, I knew she would be fine without me, but I still feel bad for abandoning her. Kazuki required my assistance. With a comforting back rub, Naruto said, she would understand, wouldn't she? I'm all she had, Yoruichi said, shaking her head. I was the center of her entire universe. With a grin gradually developing on his face, Naruto sat down on the desk and let the cat jump into his lap before saying, I'm sorry, Yoruichi. I know something that will cheer you up though. We could have sex on your old subordinate's desk, huh? Do you want that? Having sex on the desk of your subordinate? Yoruichi slashed him across the face with her claws. Gah! I'm furious. Why is that so painful? She sighed when she heard him say, so? And you haven't earned the privilege yet. Yoruichi walked over to the office window and jumped on the sill, saying, you're a total pervert. She heard swift, low footsteps coming from down the hall. Naruto, get up, we have to go. Oh my, on your claws, what do you have? This shouldn't be that painful. Yoruichi said, all right, good luck, Naruto. Come find me if you don't get killed or captured. She said, I can't be found yet, and then she leapt out of the window. A group of Shinigami in traditional ninja attire rushed into Soifan's office as the door burst open, and Naruto stopped stumbling around the room, worrying about the deep scratches on his face, to see them slowly approaching him in Hakuda stances. "Oh Yoruichi, you suck so hard, I am going to kick your cute little ass when I find you again, after I get out of this." Naruto blinked and glanced at the window where Yoruichi was no longer there. He grinned brightly and said, "Hello everyone. Although it may not appear so, I am also a ninja. So, we don't have to fight, do we?" His smile vanished as they continued to move, and a chilly mask appeared on his face. "Didn't think that would work," he said. After avoiding their initial move and running for a short distance, Naruto turned to face the group as they attacked, and as he had anticipated, he was able to get them to approach him in a single file line. Naruto clapped his hands together and held them before he opened his mouth and exclaimed, "Food!" Daitopa wind release. Great breakthrough. The attackers flew backwards against the far wall as Naruto unleashed a strong wind that blew through the hall. "No need for me to get into an open fight with these guys," Naruto said as he kept running, but he had no choice when he had to dodge a Shinigami's Zanpakuto swipe from an open doorway. A second swipe was stopped by a kunai that Naruto carefully placed in his hand from his sleeve. "Well, I am inside of their HQ," he said. Using his free hand, Naruto grabbed the Shinigami by the throat and pushed him against the wall, whereupon he let go and punched him in the face 3 times, causing his head to smash into the wall and crack it, rendering him unconscious. When Naruto turned around, he discovered that more Onmitsukido were still pursuing him. To hell with this. Naruto created an energy ball in his palm and leapt toward the ceiling, exclaiming, "Rasengan spiraling sphere." Naruto crashed through and started running on the rooftop as he approached the outside. "The Ryoka has made its getaway. Keep him inside the division's premises." Naruto closed his eyes and opened them again to reveal the Rinnegan, and a group of Shinigami with their blades out surrounded him, both in front of and behind him, using Shunpo. "You guys are slew. Shinra Tensei heavenly subjugation of the omnipresent god," he exclaimed, inciting them to attack. All of the attackers were violently pushed away by a gravitational orb, which sent them flying everywhere. After deactivating his Rinnegan and letting the bodies fall around him innocuously, Naruto rubbed his eyes angrily and uttered, "Still hurts." He then vanished in a sudden burst of speed. A plump man twice her height and 4 times her size, with black hair in a noble-looking style, walked beside Soifan, a petite woman with short black hair, 2 long braids down her back ending in golden rings, a common Shinigami's uniform, and a stern expression on her face. The 2 of them wandered through the headquarters as panic was evident, with all of the other Shinigami scurrying around. "What's going on here, Omeda?" Soifan asked, looking around. He remarked, "I don't know Taiko," before identifying a Shinigami and asking, "What's happened here?" "Taiko, Fukutaichu, one of the Ryoka came here and defeated a number of our troops," he said, pausing to salute Soifan and Omeda. He wore a red jacket, had blonde hair, and was an excellent fighter who used Hakuda and an odd form of Kido. "Deaths?" In an attempt to gather as much information as possible, Soifan said. "There are about 43 people hurt, but no one is dead. He just vanquished his assailants and went." Omeda trailed behind Soifan as she squinted and turned to leave the base, asking, "What are we going to do now, Taiko?" Did he ask? "You'll remain here and organize our troops so that we can start looking for the guilty Ryoka." As Omeda paused to carry out her orders, she declared, "I will be hunting for this particular one. I will not let this humiliation of both the second squad and the Onmitsukido stand." She suppressed her rage behind a facade of aloofness.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.